It all kicks off with Chrono crawling through a bloody mess on the floor, vowing to end his enemy. He keeps dragging himself through a field of fallen bodies. Meanwhile, the Necromancer just lets out a sarcastic laugh at the whole situation. That's when Jilgren notices the warrior is still breathing. The swordmaster, Chrono forces himself to stay conscious. Seeing the pathetic display, the mage tells him that body can't refine mana anymore and to just give up the fight. After all, the famous swordmaster's mana was only at the 7th level, way below his own. Our hero snaps back that none of that matters now. He offers the world and all his fame to the villain on a silver platter. But he desperately demands to know what happened to his wife. He becomes completely enraged, demanding to know what that scumbag did to her. At that moment, memories of the past flood his mind. He remembers when he was leaving for the war. His beloved wife said goodbye, wishing him a safe journey. The swordsman just nodded before heading out. Reality fury consumes our hero. Jilgren coldly reveals that he used his magic to turn the woman into one of the undead. The mage asks if the warrior understands why he lost the battle and his own wife. In shock, just listening. Then, the villain tells him to take a good look around. Jilgren declares that mana is everything in this world, where the strong take absolutely everything from the weak. Here's this, unable to react. He remembers his squad mates being turned into monsters. They fought with the hope of bringing world peace if they won. The swordsman curses his own weakness as he remembers them all. That the necromancer confesses he finds two things very interesting. The first is dealing with someone who is absolutely powerful, and the second thing involves breaking their spirit. He loves the exact moment a strong person's heart shatters into a million pieces. So he casts a spell, trapping the warrior in purple magical chains. Chrono cries out from the brutal impact of the magic. The villain announces that he has sealed his mana for all eternity, never to be used again. All the power he built as a swordmaster would end right there, along with his life. Next, the mage grabs the head of the undead wife, telling him to watch closely. Jilgren places a sword in the creature's hands. Desperate, the husband screams for the scumbag to stop. The necromancer mocks him, asking if he isn't going to save his beloved wife. He dares the hero to show him that power he was so proud of. The MC laments his powerlessness as his armed zombie wife approaches. Without mercy, she plunges the sword straight into his chest. Fallen and bleeding, he realizes his mana is truly gone. But he decides that magical energy doesn't matter anymore. Using pure willpower, the warrior gets back on his feet, swearing to end his enemy. Jilgren just stares in disgust at the man's useless resistance. He threatens to rip out the necromancer's throat, tear off his arms, gouge out his eyes, and crush him completely. Chrono promises to hunt the villain down until not a single piece of him is left. The mage simply agrees to finish the job. The swordsman focuses his vision on his opponent. But the zombie wife launches a surprise attack, slashing his neck. As his body falls in a bloody heap, the lesson is clear: weakness is a sin. The necromancer informs him he no longer has the right to say anything, and he finally reveals his name as Jilgren O'Proud. He suggests the warrior tell stories about him when he gets to the underworld. Chrono's consciousness begins to fade as he refuses to go out in such a pathetic way. His soul awakens in a dark void, lit by a mysterious light. A voice mocks him for being so loud, screaming about his demise until the very last second. A shadowy entity with a huge smiling face confesses it loves all this misery. Our hero is completely lost, staring at the creature. He wonders if the thing in front of him is some kind of demon. The entity reminds him that he reached the 7th level of mana, yet he was still crushed by the mage. The mysterious being asks if Chrono has any regrets. Knowing his desire for revenge, the creature offers him a unique opportunity. It promises to grant him a temporary life and power, and to create a crack in the eternal mana seal. The swordsman is clueless about this offer. The entity explains that the new body will have colossal power for 3 minutes, for him to try and take out Jilgren. Full of doubt, the warrior asks what exactly he needs to do in return. The smiling monster focuses on the faint light remaining in that completely trampled soul, and it orders him to take out the necromancer to free the soul of his beloved wife. Suddenly, his vision returns to a chaotic battlefield. Sitting on the ground, he realizes the scene is exactly the same as the moment of his passing. Staring at his own hands, he confirms that he's really back. But he gets a huge shock when he realizes he's now inhabiting the body of a child. The memory of the entity's promise rings in his head. Instantly, hatred for that scumbag reignites. The boy stands up with a determined look, ready to use his second chance. Staring at his hands, the boy realizes he can't use any mana in this body. Frustrated, he tries to understand what kind of opportunity this is without a single drop of magic. Just then, 2 soldiers spot the boy sitting alone among the bodies. The goon approaches, surprised to see a child there, and wonders if there are any other survivors. His partner says it doesn't matter, reminding him of the order to take out everyone, even women and children. Raising his sword, the first soldier agrees and prepares to follow the order. Soon as he hears the necromancer's name, hatred consumes the boy. Without wasting a second, the enemy lunges, telling the brat to say his goodbyes. But Chrono is much faster, dodging the fatal blow in the blink of an eye. Watching everything, the patrol leader praises the kid's unexpected agility. Holding a broken blade, the boy realizes the situation is worse than he thought. He sees that this child's body has absolutely zero physical strength to fight. The soldier mocks him, saying that slick moves are useless without power. Full of malice, the man repeats the cruel phrase that weakness is an unforgivable sin. The memory of his fallen comrade surfaces as the boy seethes with rage. The mage's voice echoes in his mind, stating that the weak lose everything to the strong. Our hero ends up agreeing, concluding that his mana level won't make a difference now. Determined, he vows to take that scumbag down, no matter the cost. Suddenly, a colossal energy envelopes the boy, leaving him surprised by its origin. The eternal chains that sealed his magic begin to crack on their own. With the impact of the power, the magical seal shatters completely. The shockwave throws the soldiers back with immense force. The boy stands surrounded by golden flames. Staring at his glowing hand, he's shocked by the absurd power flowing through him again. The guards panic, recognizing 5th level mana in a child. Trying not to be intimidated, the swordsman charges, yelling that he's just a useless brat. He leaps with all his might to try and hit the boy in the middle of the fire. Without showing any fear, the boy accepts the challenge instantly. In a single devastating move, he slices the enemy in half and destroys the ground in his path. The warrior lands calmly, observing the colossal damage from his new power. Even though he doesn't understand any of this madness, he admits he doesn't care about the details. Confident, he decides to use mysterious strength to hunt down and take out the necromancer. Soon, the entity's words about revenge come back to him. The creature promised him a temporary life and power, just so he could plunge his sword into the enemy's heart. Certain that he's been revived, the boy is immediately attacked by another furious guard. Effortlessly, Chrono lands a clean blow, splitting the goon in two. The soldier's body simply divides and falls lifelessly. The troop officer panics, asking what kind of monster this is. When reinforcements arrive, he screams for the battalion to attack the brat at once. Several enemies leap towards the MC at the same time, wanting to finish him. But with a quick and lethal spin, the boy slices through several of them in a single attack. The rest of the squad is terrified as our hero advances relentlessly. Landing in the middle of the battalion, he prepares his classic combat stance. Focusing energy into his blade, the swordsman invokes the third sword style. And he unleashes a massive magical attack that sweeps all the goons out of his way. The monster's order echoes again, demanding the mage's demise to free his beloved. Taking a deep breath in the smoke, the boy brings back the aura of the former swordmaster. Without looking back, he walks calmly through the scene littered with bodies. The flames begin to fade as he confirms he has eliminated the entire squad. Clenching his fist, the boy is impressed by this surreal, raw power. He recognizes his own technique, but doesn't understand how he can draw so much mana. Staring at the blade, he tries to process all this madness in silence. The shadowy being explained it created a crack in the magical seal to release overwhelming power. However, the clear rule is that this OP magical boost can only be used for 3 minutes a day. The tragic image of his demise at the hands of his corrupted wife haunts his mind. Filled with hatred, the hero declares that time doesn't matter as long as he can take out the mage. Analyzing the destruction, he figures the enemy couldn't have gone far. Determined, he vows to find the villain by any means necessary. Suddenly, the boy's eyes widen in a huge shock. His body loses all strength, and the sword simply slips from his hand. An agonizing pain hits the boy as mana spirals completely out of control. He collapses to his knees, feeling all that magical energy rapidly disappearing. Shaking badly, he tries to understand why his strength is suddenly vanishing. His body gives out completely, and he falls, cursing his own weakness as his vision darkens. Fighting against exhaustion, the warrior tries to stay awake at all costs but passes out. In that blackout, the confused memories of the body's original owner invade his mind with full force. The scene shifts to a super peaceful and sunny forest. Someone is walking along, humming a tune among the trees. Meanwhile, the boy is still stretched out on the ground, completely unconscious. A young man stops near the body, complaining that this kid is nothing but a pain in the neck. Looking down on him with contempt, the relative declares that this chic guy is going to stay gone for good. Our hero is left on the grass without showing any reaction. The arrogant noble says the family doesn't accept failures and tells him to just perish in the dirt. Turning his back, he grumbles that he doesn't want to get dirty with trash and decides to leave. Just then, someone pours a mysterious liquid on the MC's head, startling him awake. Head soaked, the blonde noble mockingly tells him he's being left alone to be eaten by beasts. Turning to leave, the arrogant one orders his companion to untee the brat on the ground. The other guy hesitates for a moment, making the leader sarcastically ask if the kid is begging for his life. Crouching down near the abandoned body, the goon gets close and says he's only going to say this once. But our hero lifts his head with a killer look, demanding in a heavy voice that he untie him now. The guy gets a terrible fright from that threatening aura and backs away, trembling with fear. In a panic, he turns and begs his older brother, Grika, for them to get out of there quickly. Not understanding the panic, the leader asks why he's so scared of a mana, less loser like Sheik. Stuttering badly, the guy points behind him and tells his brother to just look at the kid. Grika gets annoyed with his cowardly posture, saying such attitudes are unacceptable for someone carrying the Jilgren family name. At that, our hero's eyes widen, consumed by fury upon hearing the wretched necromancer's surname. Ignoring the boy, the blonde starts to walk away while his brother runs desperately after him. Grika just clicks his tongue, visibly annoyed by the whole pathetic scene. Left in the dirt, the hero continues to glare at the two nobles with eyes full of hatred. Noticing the stare, the leader yells for the idiot to stop looking and tells the kid to get eaten and be done with it. The tied-up boy silently watches the two cowards disappear into the forest. He repeats the names Grika and Greo, so he won't forget the faces of those who abandoned him. The realization that he's the family's magic, less loser makes the situation even more confusing in his head. Excitement takes over as he remembers the name Gilgren, realizing he has a lot of questions for those two. Determined to go after them, the boy tries to get up and decides he needs to deal with these ropes first. At that exact moment, a strange noise comes from right behind him, instantly grabbing his attention. A colossal rhino-like beast with glowing eyes emerges from the shadows, drooling with hunger. Looking over his shoulder, the boy recognizes the giant monster and realizes the immediate danger. He notes the creature's absurd size and wonders if this thing is the king of the forest. Without wasting time, the monster charges and smashes the ground with a brutal attack. The MC manages to jump aside at the last second, but he knows the situation is terrible. He's fully aware that this kid's fragile body would be destroyed by a single direct hit. Sliding on the grass to regain his balance, he notices that the beast's charge at least served to snap the rope. But the beast attacks again with a violent headbutt, launching the boy high into the air. While flying from the impact, he tries to draw on his strength and confirms he still can't use a drop of mana. Desperate in mid-air, he tries to figure out how to summon that absurd magic from before. The boy's body plummets at full speed and collides violently with a rock on the ground. The impact crushes his ribs, and he spits blood instantly, gritting his teeth in pure pain. Taking advantage of the opening, the giant rhino prepares another lethal charge to crush its prey. Lying there, our hero curses his luck for being revived in a body that can't even handle a random beast. Suddenly, the tragic memory of his old subordinates being turned into undead monsters invades his mind. The dark image of his beloved, corrupted wife calling for him returns to haunt him. And finally, the sadistic face of the scumbag necromancer echoes in his head like torture. That pure hatred reignites the flames within the warrior, making his eyes glow with intense fury. With clenched teeth, he ignores the pain and declares that the limitations of this useless body don't matter. An overwhelming energy explodes around him as he vows to take down that villain, no matter what it takes. Far away, the noble family's enormous mansion stands imposing in the daylight. In the luxurious corridors, the two brothers walk calmly as if nothing happened. The younger one breaks the silence, commenting that their father still hasn't returned home, which is quite rare. But the conversation is cut short when the blonde notices a group of subordinates gathered a little further ahead. Curious, the noble asks what's going on, prompting a red-haired guy to ask where he's been. The informant reports that a total disaster occurred, revealing that the squad sent to the rebel base was annihilated. The news hits the two brothers like a punch, leaving them both completely stunned. Grika finds it absurd and asks who would have the power for that, receiving only a vague answer from the redhead. The subordinate adds that so far, they haven't found any trace of the person responsible for the massacre. Breaking out in a cold sweat, the younger brother whispers in the leader's ear, reminding him that this was the exact place where they left the brat. Terrified, he suggests the possibility that the boy might know something very dangerous. The blonde loses his patience with his own nervousness and punches the wall, stating that a loser wouldn't know anything. Just then, a loud bang echoes through the house, making the boy think their father has finally arrived. Even so, guilt consumes the guy who regrets leaving the MC to perish in the woods. Annoyed by all the whining, the older one tells him to shut up and forget about it. He tries to calm himself by arguing that someone as pathetic as that kid must be long gone by now. But the next second, the mansion doors are blown apart by an absurd impact of pure force. Startled, the brother's eyes widen as he sees debris and smoke flooding the main corridor. To everyone's shock, the giant rhino monster appears sprawled on the floor, defeated and groaning. In absolute panic, the younger one screams for his brother while trying to back away. The other nobles present are completely clueless about the madness and demand an explanation. From the shadows of the smoke, heavy footsteps echo, causing the redhead to sarcastically scold the brothers for not covering their tracks. The blonde holds his breath as he recognizes the silhouette of the person who just invaded the mansion. In a terrifying scene, the MC walks through the hall, dragging the colossal body of the beast with one hand. Completely engulfed in golden flames, the boy announces that he has some important questions to ask. With a face twisted by malice, he guarantees that first, he's going to return the favor the brothers did for him back in the forest. Inwardly, the swordsman is still impressed with the brutal strength this body can now handle. He notes with relief that the unbearable pain from the first time is gone, and even without understanding the trigger, he accessed the magic again. Staring at his own hand, he tries to deduce if this is related to the daily time limit imposed by the shadowy monster. Meanwhile, silence fills the luxurious hall in the intimidating presence of the flaming boy. The redhead points with a trembling hand, unable to believe that the family's famous loser awakened such monstrous mana overnight. But the hero shoots him a cutting glare of contempt, deciding to completely ignore the other's doubts. Taking a step forward with the fire illuminating everything, he concludes that overthinking the magic won't help his mission. Wielding his sword with determination, the boy demands that the nobles give him Gilgran's exact location immediately. The red-haired guy stammers in fear, asking what exactly our hero is talking about. Just then, a blonde girl runs into the hall, desperately begging for young Master Sheik to stop. Surprised, the swordsman turns his head, confused to hear his new name being called. The maid throws herself on him, smothering the boy in a very tight hug. She quickly says that she's always telling him to try and play more nicely with his own brothers. Completely lost, the warrior tries to figure out who this girl is, appearing out of nowhere. Pulling the boy along, the young woman bows, apologizing to the nobles for the confusion and promises to give the kid a good scolding. Without wasting time, she grabs Sheik and starts dragging him down the hall at full speed while saying, "Goodbye." The goons are left in the dust, staring at the debris and the dead beast in the destroyed hall. Still in shock, the red-haired informant asks what that madness was all about, but the older brother admits he has no idea. Now in a safe room, the girl lets out a heavy sigh of relief while the MC sits on the bed. Giving him a lecture, she asks what the young master was thinking, causing such a scene in front of everyone. Visibly worried, the maid mentions her fear of how the family will retaliate against this rebellious act. Annoyed with the scolding, Sheik tells her to shut up and demands to know who she thinks she is. But the young woman adopts a serious tone, reminding him that power is everything in this house and that angering the strong as someone without magic is a terrible idea. Clutching his chest, the boy confesses that just thinking about it gives him a bad feeling. Silence fills the room as he tries to process the bitter feelings of that body. The MC concludes that being called a magic-less loser makes perfect sense now. Trembling in pain, the boy suffers as he relives the repressed emotions of humiliation from the body's previous owner. While preparing tea, the maid reveals she has been looking after the young master for a long time. Pouring the drink into the cup, she claims to have seen firsthand all the sweat and tears he shed trying to improve. Staring at his reflection in the green liquid, Sheik hears about the sadness he carries for not being able to awaken his magic. Holding the tray, the girl explains that the life force present in all people is the coveted mana. However, she points out that only a very select group can turn this into real power for magic or swordsmanship. The young woman details that there is a 7-level system to measure strength, and while his brothers reached the 4th level, he remained at 0. With a gentle posture, she hands the hot cup to the warrior to drink and calm down. Kneeling on the floor of the simple room, the girl laments the way the family scorns him, confessing that her heart aches for him. Moved by those affectionate words, the swordsman's eyes widen in surprise at such dedication. Touching the boy's face, she points out the scar made by his brother Griot when he was only 5, and mentions several other old marks. Clasping her hand sadly, the maid assures him that she remembers every physical and emotional wound he has ever suffered. With teary eyes, the blonde reveals that the only thing she wants is to keep the boy completely safe. The hero turns his head and stays silent for a brief moment, absorbing all that genuine loyalty. Scratching his head awkwardly, he admits he lost control out there and promises to be more careful from now on. Changing his posture, Sheik sincerely apologizes for making the girl worry for no reason. Still shaken by the situation, the young woman quietly agrees, a little embarrassed by his kindness. Curious, she asks how he managed to come out on top in that whole mess without a drop of magic. The boy immediately realizes that the maid wasn't actually there to see him use the absurd power of the flames. Tense, the warrior thinks it's impossible to explain his resurrection and the use of advanced martial arts in that useless body. Noticing his hesitation, the girl asks if by any chance he used some kind of dirty trick in the fight. Sweating bullets as he tries to play it off, Our hero awkwardly agrees, mentally admitting that his temporary power is basically one giant cheat code. Sighing, the blonde says she'd rather see him walk with his head held high, but she understands his actions because of all the suffering he's been through. With a sly look, Sheik states he's sure no one in that family would condemn a surprise attack. Getting up from the bed, the boy gets the young woman's attention, wanting to ask a direct question about Jilgren. But that moment, the door opens and an armored guard announces that the Lord has returned home and demands his son's presence. Caught off guard by the sudden summons, the boy repeats the word, "Father," as he tries to understand what awaits him. Arriving in the throne room, closely followed by armored guards, the hero approaches the large double doors. A frightening purple aura emanates from the imposing white-haired man who greets the boy, calling him his incompetent son. Shock instantly grips Chrono as he perfectly recognizes the face of his greatest enemy. Instinctively backing away, the boy panics, trying to understand why that scumbag mage is standing right in front of him. Sitting on the throne with complete arrogance, the necromancer ignores the tension and orders the boy to come closer. Our hero falls to his knees as he processes the harsh reality that the villain of his life is the patriarch of this very family. Wide eyes and a cold sweat, he grits his teeth, feeling hatred boiling throughout his body. The memory of the shadowy monster offering a chance for revenge in exchange for his life resonates strongly in his disturbed mind. Consumed by fury, the warrior concludes this seems like some sick joke, but decides to end the man right then and there. Clenching his fist tightly, the swordsman celebrates the fact that he won't have to hunt down his adversary and prepares for the lethal strike. However, he remains motionless in the middle of the luxurious hall under the cold gaze of the family's leader. Frustration crushes the boy, who curses the situation upon noticing his body isn't responding. Staring at his own trembling hand, he panics as his magic fails to awaken at the most crucial moment of all. From high on his throne, the necromancer glares at the boy and says he summoned him for one and only one reason. The patriarch reveals he's heard rumors that the magic-less loser easily overpowered his brother Grika and asks if it's true. Our hero maintains a tense silence, completely frozen by his lack of power, while the maid watches in fear. Stepping forward, the girl bows, crying heavily, and begs for mercy, assuring him the boy is very sorry. The villain's face darkens with extreme cruelty as he orders the servant to shut her mouth immediately. Panting, the hero remains paralyzed, trying to catch his breath under the absurd pressure of that place. The patriarch clarifies that he doesn't intend to punish anyone, but confesses he's curious about the trick a piece of mana, less trash, managed to pull off. Without any warning, he summons a colossal, red undead hydra that roars with fury, breaking its chains. The boy immediately recognizes the bizarre nature of the monstrous, multi-headed creature. Standing next to the beast, the villain declares that in this family, power is absolute and tells the boy to prove his strength, if he truly has any. The gigantic hydra dominates the hall, threatening to destroy everything, making the atmosphere completely desperate for the two of them. The warrior stands motionless, facing the abomination without retreating a single inch. Desperate, the maid warns that the beast has 6th-level magical energy, a monster capable of wiping out an entire army. One of the beast's heads concentrates a sphere of pure purple energy as the girl screams for the young master to run. The creature fires the massive attack with full force, causing an explosion that shatters the stone floor. In the blink of an eye, Sheik leaps in front of the young woman as purple energy begins to overflow from his right arm. Analyzing the intense magic flowing, he notes they brutally modified this beast, as a hydra's normal level is much lower. Jilgren watches the boy, stating that a human without magic could never defeat that creature. Enveloped in black flames, Sheik thinks he has no idea where this power came from or what might happen if he keeps using it. But with a furious look, the boy concludes that he simply doesn't care about the consequences. Firmly gripping the shadowy sword, he declares that taking out that scumbag first is the only thing that really matters now. Just then, the gigantic hydra roars furiously behind him, ready to attack. The maid screams desperately for the young master upon seeing the imminent danger. In a brutal move, the hero slices through the beast's attack with a massive blow of pure energy. Jilgren just lets out a surprised murmur, finding the scene quite interesting. As the dust settles, our hero remains standing, exuding a frightening black aura. Lying on the floor, the girl can barely believe what she's seeing. In complete shock, she tries to guess if that absurd magic is 5th or even 7th level. The warrior turns his head, glaring furiously at the family patriarch. Noticing the enemy's calm demeanor, Sheik realizes he's hiding some trick, just like he used to do in the past. However, the boy just gives a confident smile, deciding that none of it matters now. Pointing the shadow-wreathed blade, he tells the mage directly that it's his turn now. The hero maintains his offensive stance, awaiting his adversary's reaction. Without showing a hint of fear, the necromancer lets out a sarcastic laugh, confessing he found it all very amusing. Trembling with panic, the maid calls out to the boy, trying to intervene. She desperately begs him to stop this madness and not to advance any further. Without taking his eyes off the villain, Sheik coldly orders the young woman to stay back. With a murderous look, he warns that he will take her out without hesitation if she gets in his way. The girl holds her breath, completely terrified by the threat. Unable to bear the pressure, she faints right there on the hall floor. Gilgren flashes a wicked smile, praising that look full of hatred. The patriarch comments that the magical pressure in the room is so strong the servant couldn't take it, admitting he barely recognizes his own son. Finding it all impressive, the mage asks what the boy's next move will be. Completely consumed by fury, our hero charges forward, yelling that he's going to slaughter the scumbag right there. With a powerful leap, he delivers a brutal overhead strike. The sword collides violently, creating a wave of black destruction across the floor. But in the same instant, the boy's eyes widen as he realizes something has gone very wrong. To the hero's dismay, the necromancer blocks the blade with absurd ease. The massive impact is contained by a tiny barrier created by the villain. The boy grits his teeth, pushing with all his might to break the defense. He's completely shocked by the mage's surreal physical strength. Taking advantage of the opening, Gilgren tells him not to look away and prepares a counterattack. An overwhelming attack launches our hero into the air like a ragdoll. Before the boy can even react, the mage appears in front of him in mid-air. With a merciless blow, the villain smashes the boy back down onto the stone floor. Landing calmly, the patriarch scoffs that there's still not enough power there. As the hero struggles to get up, the enemy notes that this magic is incomparable to before. Sheik groans in pain, feeling the damage from the brutal impact throughout his body. Intrigued, Gilgren asks how he obtained all this, suggesting an awakening of the family's bloodline. In a cold sweat, the swordsman realizes the situation is exactly the same as in the past. Trying to catch his breath, the boy attempts to process the true extent of that cursed strength. He quickly concludes that words like strong or dangerous don't even come close to defining the villain. Looking up at the mage, our hero feels that there's something very wrong with his mana. The tragic memory returns, showing that continuing to attack blindly will only lead to his absolute end. Digging his fingers into the broken floor, the hero feels his instincts screaming in danger. Consumed by frustration, he curses his luck, wondering if he's going to lose again. The silent boy, the patriarch, asks if he has anything else to say. The tense silence prevails, and the mage considers it an excellent response. Walking through the hall, the villain recalls the family creed, where victory is justice and weakness is a sin. Since the boy killed the Hydra, proving his strength, the leader decides to overlook the assassination attempt. Surprising everyone, he promises to grant a reward and tells his son to reveal his greatest desire. The warrior freezes with rage, realizing he's being ridiculed, as the scumbag won't even bother to take him out. The painful memory of his old subordinate screaming for help floods his mind. The image of his beloved, corrupted wife serves as a trigger to maintain his focus. Gritting his teeth, Sheik declares he can't make any mistakes now and must act for them. Swallowing his pride, he plans to uncover all of this monster's secrets before launching his final attack. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, the boy breaks the silence, addressing the patriarch as Lord. But he quickly corrects himself to Father, asking for permission to see the undead he controls. The necromancer stops walking and glances sideways, a little surprised by the unusual request. Keeping up the act, the boy confirms with a serious and focused look. Without much questioning, Gilgren orders him to follow, and the two walk across the outer courtyard. They pass through a secret, torch-lit door on the side of the grand estate. As they descend a long stone staircase, the patriarch asks the reason for this sudden interest. The boy makes up a story that he felt the Hydra's power and wants to learn how to obtain that strength for himself. But halfway down, the hero's body hits its limit, and he leans against the stone wall. Mage notices his son's difficulty and coldly asks what's wrong with him. Hiding his sweaty face, Sheik lies, saying it's nothing and that he's just a little tired from the fight. Inwardly, he's suffering excruciating pain, feeling his entire body being torn to pieces again. With teeth clenched in agony, the warrior swears he can't pass out there while his troop depends on him. Using pure willpower, he endures the physical punishment, remembering the suffering of his beloved Hannah. Far away, night falls peacefully over the houses of a nearby town under a starry sky. Inside one of the homes, a muscular, red-haired man turns his head as he's called Darling. In the past, the red-haired warrior turns his head, confused upon hearing a sweet voice call for him. His beloved wife Hannah shows off a very elegant dress, wanting his opinion. Charmed by her beauty, Chrono becomes completely flustered, admiring the woman. Trying to hide his embarrassment, he grumbles that he knows absolutely nothing about appearances and clothes. At that, the young woman approaches him calmly. Adjusting her husband's clothes, Hannah reminds him that he is a swordmaster respected throughout the empire. As his wife, she assures him that she needs to maintain the hero's impeccable public image. great sweetness, the young woman compliments the warrior's look, stating that he looks wonderful. Back in the present, Sheik walks in the shadows, asking his beloved for forgiveness and vowing to destroy that scumbag. Leading the way, the necromancer walks calmly through the dark and silent corridor. Jilgren stops walking and dryly announces that they have finally arrived at their destination. The two enter a huge hall as the patriarch points out that this is the place. Standing near a containment rail, they look out over the immense abyss before them. The boy is completely shocked by the terrifying sight that emerges from the shadows. An endless sea of glowing, undead souls writhes in pure agony below. Observing the terrifying abyss, the boy can't believe the sheer scale of it. He asks the patriarch what the heck this sea of ghosts is. With utmost coldness, the mage explains that the dead have no emotions or will of their own. However, the villain reveals that on rare occasions, they find a very interesting specimen. A specific undead woman appears, glowing intensely as she cries nonstop. The necromancer comments that this soul laments constantly, as if waiting for someone. Upon looking closely at the creature, the boy is shocked, instantly recognizing his beloved Hannah. Watching the scene, Gilgren finds it fascinating how the human will yearns for something even after the end. Amused by the boy's reaction, the mage pulls the zombie wife closer and tells him to come have a better look. The corrupted creature extends a hand, crying, with a completely bizarre and stitched-together appearance. Clenching his fist until it bleeds, our hero curses that scumbag with all his might. Fury consumes his being as he mentally repeats that he will murder the villain. But swallowing all his hatred, the hero declares that it's not the right time to attack. Thinking of his wife's smile, he asks her to hold on tight and vows that revenge will come. Determined, Sheik concludes he must uncover the secret of the enemy's power, no matter the cost. Staring at the terrifying expanse, the boy tries to absorb what this bizarre place is. Down, the patriarch calmly replies that those are the souls of the departed. He reiterates that those entities have completely lost their emotions and desires from life. However, the mage reveals he's found some very curious deceased individuals lately and decides to show one. The ghostly soul of the woman cries compulsively among the other blue flames. In a cold sweat, the boy calls his wife's name, feeling a terrible tightness in his chest. Grabbing the head of the physical zombie version, Jilgren sadistically asks if this wasn't what he wanted to see. The necromancer brings the corrupted monster closer and tells his son to observe every detail carefully. The decrepit creature raises its hand, pointing directly at the warrior in a frightening tone. Our hero remains paralyzed and silent so as not to blow his cover in front of the enemy. Later that night, heavy rain falls as the boy rests alone in his room. Wrapped in blankets near a lamp, he tries to process the day's traumatic events. With a focused gaze, the hero asks Hannah for a little more patience and promises to take out the mage. Fury burns intensely in his soul, reinforcing his promise to annihilate the necromancer. The next morning, the sun shines brightly, illuminating the vast territory of the noble family's mansion. The blonde maid carefully opens the bedroom door and wishes the young master a good morning. However, the girl is a little startled when she notices the boy's movement. She sees that the swordsman is already fully dressed, and he just gives a short nod. Entering the room, the young woman apologizes for being late and says she'll prepare hot tea right away. With great delicacy, the steaming liquid is served in the boy's porcelain cup. The girl hands him the drink, still showing a lot of nervousness about the whole situation. Sitting by the window, the boy remains completely silent, watching the movement outside. The servant breaks into a cold sweat, remembering the murderous aura and absurd power the hero unleashed the day before. Bowing respectfully, she apologizes for overstepping her bounds and losing her composure. Excitedly, the girl notes that he has finally awakened his magic and confesses she was surprised by so much power. With a sincere smile, she states that above all else, she is extremely happy for his achievement. Not paying attention, Sheik is fully focused on his mission to uncover Gilgren's magical secrets. The warrior concludes that surprise attacks will have no effect against that kind of OP power. Recalling the mage's unbeatable purple barrier, the boy admits he understands almost nothing about that spell. In urgent need of answers, the boy snaps out of his thoughts when the maid softly calls his name. Being overly dramatic, the girl cries, saying that being ignored like that is just cruel. Wiping away theatrical tears, she grumbles that she was only worried about his relationship with the Lord. Annoyed by the act, the boy quickly says he wasn't ignoring anyone and was just lost in thought. The young woman doesn't listen and embraces her own pain, stating she will serve him even if she's hated, making him sigh in exhaustion. Seizing the opportunity, Sheik decides to get straight to the point and asks if the girl knows anything about Jilgren's magic. The blonde blinks, confused, not understanding the reason for such a sudden question on that topic. Being just a maid, she denies knowing his secrets but reveals that the mage's aura seems to drain the life force from people around him. The boy is intrigued to learn that the servant also felt that ominous presence during the fight. Reflecting deeply, he deduces that mana should be the pure essence of life force, not its lethal opposite. Focusing on the details, our hero suspects that the key to defeating the necromancer lies exactly in this bizarre contradiction. Changing the subject, the maid confesses she's desperate about the possibility of him not being recovered for tomorrow's event. Having no idea what she's talking about, the warrior immediately asks what test she's referring to. Surprised he forgot, the girl explains that tomorrow is the mandatory evaluation for family members who turn 10. The hero repeats the girl's words, trying to search the body's fragmented memory for what this family training could be. Without a shred of patience, he waves his hand, saying he has no time to waste on this, which terrifies the servant. The maid warns that there's a strict family rule about taking the test in the year you turn 10. You get banished on the spot if you don't participate or fail, as the weak are not allowed to remain in the house. Sheik listens to everything, trying to understand why the necromancer is so obsessed with making others prove their strength. With this, the boy suspects that this extremist attitude is somehow connected to the secret of that absurd power. Focused on his revenge, he asks the girl if passing this exam will allow him to get closer to the Lord. The young woman is surprised by the question, while our hero calmly waits for the answer. She explains that those who pass can join the guard unit and receive direct orders from the family's leader. A large crowd of candidates gathers in the main courtyard of the vast estate. In the middle of the group, one of the boys notices some strange movement and looks back. Sheik walks confidently across the courtyard, closely followed by his loyal servant. The boy and his friend are astonished, questioning what that loser is doing there among them. In disbelief, they ask if the magic-less loser really plans to take the family's lethal test. At that, one of them clicks his tongue, confessing he thought the kid would prefer to be banished peacefully. Trying to maintain his composure, the noble concludes that the last event was just luck and that the brat is getting too big for his britches. Right behind our hero, the maid calls his name, showing a lot of nervousness about the situation. The girl begs him not to push it, terrified of seeing the young master get hurt again. Already out of patience, the warrior grumbles that she's annoying and repeats that everything is fine. But deep down, he admits he has no idea what the true physical limit of this fragile body is. Even so, the boy is certain that being banished from that house is not a viable option. He concludes that he needs to stay close to the patriarch to uncover his magical secrets. Seizing this golden opportunity, he walks with determination to pass this test, assuming Sheik's identity. The hero promises to find out everything about the enemy and vows to save his wife, Hannah. Suddenly, a cocky goon steps in front of the boy, completely blocking his path. The guy, named Zach, approaches our hero with a sneer, wanting to know what he's doing there. Finding it amusing, the noble confesses he's surprised he came back alive and assumes the coward ran away crying. The maid tries to defend the young master, but Zach cuts her off, doubting the loser will take the test. Getting right up in his face, the bully warns that the exam is no joke and tells him to go back to his room with the servant. Without wasting time, the guy lunges forward, trying to land a punch straight to the boy's face. Sheik catches the blow with extreme ease, leaving the attacker completely confused and mocking his weak strength. Glaring intimidatingly at the coward, the swordsman coldly says that he's very annoying. In the blink of an eye, our hero lands a quick, sharp blow right in the guy's stomach. The other boys are totally startled when they hear the strange sound of the impact. The attacker loses his breath instantly and starts to keel over, unable to react. With a heavy thud, the bully collapses, hitting his face directly on the dirt ground. The crowd around them is in shock, trying to figure out how their friend just passed out like that. Watching the scene, they start to suspect that the useless brat did something to the guy. Ignoring the knocked-out bully, Sheik calmly states that the guy will be out for a while. Breaking into a cold sweat, the other nobles can't believe the family's trash knows martial arts. Just then, a man with a mustache appears, breaking up the commotion and declaring that the entertainment is over. Holding a pocket watch, the instructor announces that the time has come and tells everyone to gather. The hero simply takes his position among the other candidates, maintaining a completely serene posture. The man observes the large group formed in the courtyard and announces the official start of the activities. Pointing his finger, he confirms that the 23 youths present carry the leader's blood. Staring at the attentive boys, the instructor asks if they are all aware that they are the exam candidates. In unison, the entire group quickly agrees, showing absolute respect for the evaluation. The proctor picks up a document and says he will read the protocol aloud so there are no doubts. He declares the start of the strength test for all who have turned 10, aiming to prove the family's combat value. The grand prize for passing is a spot in the Lord's prestigious personal guard unit. This elite squad handles everything under the Patriarch's direct command, from assassinations to military operations. The man emphasizes that clearing this brutal evaluation is the sole basic requirement to join the troop. The test consists of surviving on a mountain infested with magical beasts hungry for human blood. In a grim tone, the instructor warns that several participants perish in the first forest every year. Suddenly, the intimidating figure of the necromancer appears, walking calmly through the courtyard gate. Upon noticing the absolute presence of the family's leader, the candidates are shocked and hold their breath. In total submission, the young nobles immediately kneel before the Supreme Lord. However, our hero remains standing, staring at the enemy, while one of the boys whispers for him to get down. The villain casts a heavy glare, keeping one of his undead abominations right by his side. Consumed by hatred, the hero reaffirms his promise to use this opportunity to get his revenge. Swallowing his pride, he gives in to the pressure and kneels along with the rest of the group on the stone ground. With eyes gleaming with rage, the boy greets the scumbag, maintaining his submissive facade. The patriarch announces that this year's special rule involves protecting an undead creature throughout the entire test. With a sadistic smile, he explains that he will grant each participant a corpse to protect with their own life. The villain suggests the boys view this bizarre task as a little rehearsal for when they become his guards. Instantly, thick chains are fastened to the wrists of all the youths, linking them to the monsters. The mage reveals he has cut off the creature's mana supply, which means they won't resurrect. Cynically, the family leader comments that this fragility makes the zombies all the more valuable to protect. The cold metal tightens around the boy's wrist, binding his fate directly to the shambling abomination. Staring at the generic monster beside him, our hero concludes that the father of this family is a true psychopath. Nearby, one of the candidates pinches his nose, complaining about the unbearable smell of his assigned creature. The guy grumbles, finding it bizarre that the corpse in the dress keeps crying nonstop. Sheik recognizes the zombie and his eyes widen in absolute shock. The hero glares at the Lord's back, enraged that his beloved wife was given to some random kid. Completely dominated by fury, the warrior curses that scumbag, gritting his teeth with so much hatred. Raising his arms, the necromancer orders his children to enter the forest and show the family's true power. In the shadows, the swordsman accepts any twisted challenge with the sole promise of brutally annihilating Gilgren. The necromancer raises a hand engulfed in purple magic, warning that the first test is one of pure survival. With his bizarre imposition, the patriarch tells his children to advance and show their true strength. The candidates immediately agree, while Sheik just watches the Lord walk away across the courtyard. Our hero seethes with rage, mentally guaranteeing he will pass this trial no matter the cost. Focused on the mission, he concludes this is the only chance to get close to the enemy and uncover the secret of his power. Knowing he has no other choice now, the boy vows to face as many tests as necessary. His greatest motivation burns in his chest, repeating the promise to assassinate Gilgren and free his beloved Hannah. At that, a memory from a few days ago comes to mind, with the maid outside the room thinking about strength. In that twisted family, the special training already involved sending children to hunt magical beasts in the forest. And the cruelty went even further, even including the assassination of other human beings in the process. Belle says they go to the extreme of leaving siblings on a deserted island just to see who comes back alive. Serving the tea, the young woman confesses she finds it too cruel for a commoner and asks if the boy remembers this. Casually sipping his drink, Sheik replies with the utmost calm that he has no idea what she's talking about. Trying to recall any fragmented memory, he racks his brain but confirms he really remembers nothing. The girl panics, immediately apologizing, while the swordsman asks if this tradition is that old. The maid explains it's a rule from a few decades ago, leading the boy to deduce it's not even that historical. She excitedly tells him that this strict motto has made the house highly respected even by neighboring countries. However, the warrior feels there's something very strange about this whole story. He analyzes that the family doesn't even have any honor to protect, making this sick obsession with raw power nonsensical. Staring at a portrait of his enemy, our hero grumbles that instead of getting answers, he's only finding more mysteries. Back in the courtyard in the present, the servant quietly begs the young master to follow the rules carefully. She warns that failing the test means being expelled from the mansion without any mercy from the leader. With a sweet look, Belle confesses she would be happy with any outcome as long as he could stay there. Returning his focus to the exam, the hero glares at the generic female zombie chained to his arm. Without a shred of patience, he demands to switch creatures, stating he won't drag that piece of trash along to hunt beasts. The instructor denies the request, explaining that the chain is the Lord's magic and only comes off if the monster perishes or is released. Annoyed, the boy retorts that he'll be at a huge disadvantage if this useless thing gets destroyed. Suddenly, the patriarch himself appears, cutting off the conversation and telling his son to do whatever he wants. Coldly states that the type of undead doesn't matter to the strong, and tells the weak to get lost. Feigning panic, Sheik bows desperately and apologizes loudly to maintain his submissive disguise. At that, the cowardly kid with the hero's wife shouts excitedly that he will complete the mission perfectly. Turning his back, Gilgren just nods and tells the boy to do his best as he has high expectations. Full of pride, the young noble thanks the patriarch for his attention, almost bursting with joy. As the villain passes by, our hero calls out to his father in a very serious tone. The necromancer stops walking instantly, while the boy glares at his back. Looking over his shoulder with boredom, the lord dryly asks what the brat wants now. Maintaining a firm stance, Sheik guarantees he will crush this exam and remain in the mansion by his side. With blood in his eyes, the swordsman tells the scumbag to expect great things from his performance. The mage envelopes the candidates in a purple magical aura, telling the boy to prove his strength if he's capable. In the blink of an eye, the magic vanishes along with the villain, leaving the boy and the other kid completely surprised. Furious, the smug young noble starts yelling, accusing the hero of being disrespectful to the leader. But Sheik slowly turns his head and gets the guy's attention with a dark tone that cuts the tension. Glaring at the chain that binds Hannah, the warrior gives a clear warning not to leave a single scratch on her. With a terrifyingly murderous aura, the boy vows to slaughter his peer if he lays a finger on that zombie. The guy backs away, trembling with fear, mumbling that he has no idea what the useless brat is talking about. Sweating bullets, the coward tries to figure out if that threat was a declaration of rivalry or a warning to give up. Tired of dealing with an idiot, our hero clicks his tongue and just turns away, ignoring the outburst. Trying to regain his pride, the smug kid yells for the magic less trash to mind his own business. Cutting through the commotion, the instructor returns to the center of the courtyard, confirming if everyone is ready. Raising a mysterious lantern, the mustached man announces that the first trial will finally begin. He explains that the bizarre flame was granted by the patriarch himself to start the tests. The next second, the purple fire explodes violently, engulfing all the candidates at once. Caught off guard by the intense light, the swordsman quickly realizes it's a teleportation spell. Watching the empty courtyard, the instructor gives a slight smile, wishing the young nobles good luck. In the background, his loyal sidekick Belle clasps her hands, praying desperately for her young master's safety. Far away, the phantom fire glows among the trees, heralding the hero's arrival in the dark forest. The boy takes a good look around and confirms he has landed at the exam site with his monster. Staring into the silent woods, he tries to deduce if the other participants were sent to different areas. But his sharp instincts soon pick up a strange presence, ruling out a human due to the lack of killing intent. A very loud noise comes from the bushes right behind him, confirming they are not alone. Purple magical letters begin to float in front of the boy, drawing his attention to the test rules. The message confirms the objective: survive for 3 days while protecting the undead from magical beasts. The warrior finds this whole policy of victory and sibling elimination completely rotten and sick. With a focused look, he is certain that the answer to the villain's obsession lies at the end of this trial. Suddenly, a huge shadow emerges from behind the boy, lunging to devour him. Unfazed, Sheik celebrates the fact that the beasts appeared right away, saving him the trouble of hunting. Drawing his sword in the blink of an eye, he remembers he is someone who has already passed on and been given a new life. With a brutal upward slash, the boy slices the giant crow, vowing not to make mistakes in his second chance. Spinning in the air to dodge another monster's fangs, he decides that taking the long way will be his shortcut. Fully focused on combat, the swordsman declares he will clear this cursed exam using Sheik's identity. Landing perfectly, he lands another lethal blow on a bird, protecting his useless zombie. With the dead monsters scattered across the clearing, the hero lets his guard down for a second, letting out a heavy breath. Standing next to the corpse, our hero jokes that his escort missions from his past life finally came in handy. However, gigantic gorillas emerge from nowhere, roaring in fury and leaping to crush the intruders in the woods. Dashing like a flash across the battlefield, the boy mercilessly cuts down the primates in a single motion. Annoyed by the situation, Sheik clicks his tongue, noticing that the monsters just keep coming. He notes that things are going pretty badly, having already taken 2 losses on his side. Just then, a giant ape appears, roaring behind him, and the boy decides to use the beast as a mere warm-up. With the monsters down, the swordsman wonders if that level of destruction is enough. Looking around, he tries to figure out if there's a proctor hiding somewhere, grading his performance. Suddenly, a sword hits the ground violently right next to him, nearly hitting its mark. One of the candidates appears, taunting him, finding it amazing how someone without magic is doing so well. Without letting his guard down, our hero points his blade, demanding to know what the scumbag wants, getting so close out of nowhere. The rival just gives a cynical little laugh, staring at the warrior. He says he'll skip the boring greetings, declaring that trash like Sheik has no right to take the exam and will become beast food. The hero concludes grimly the weak without power don't even deserve to keep breathing. He confirms that this cruel method fits the family perfectly, but admits he deeply hates it. At that, he remembers the motto that the winner is always right and all their sins are forgiven. Staring at his opponent with fury, the boy warns that there will be no mercy since the other guy attacked first. Observing the threatening posture, the noble scoffs, saying it's impressive for a magic-less loser. In a swift advance, the guy yells the MC's name and charges in for the attack. Remaining calm, the swordsman reinforces that the enemy's initiative justifies his lack of mercy. Focus, he promises to reveal the true weight of his power. The opponent maintains a sadistic cynicism on his face. Leaping for a lethal attack, the noble tells the loser to keep barking while he tries to crush him. The blow hits the ground, causing a large explosion, as he vows the boy will be the first one eliminated. However, it was all a distraction for him to throw a bag of dirt right in the hero's face. The boy instantly notices that the dirty trick was done using a hidden prosthetic arm. Dust kicks up fiercely on the battlefield as the rival lets out a hysterical laugh. Full of pride for his own cowardly move, he celebrates, thinking the loser got what he deserved. But when the smoke clears, the boy is still standing completely unharmed, leaving the attacker clueless. Gripped by panic, the coward realizes too late that the swordsman is already right behind him. Our hero calmly explains that it was just an afterimage from his absurd speed. Completing his thought, Sheik states that the high humidity of the forest made the trick much easier for this weak body. The peer freaks out completely, yelling that his talk makes no sense. With a nostalgic look, the warrior comments that in his other life, he used to deal with cowardly trash all the time. He details that the posture and body weight gave away instantly, that the move was never a real attack. Feeling humiliated, the noble charges desperately, telling the brat to stop underestimating him. In a clean and lethal move, the hero slams the enemy face, first into the dirt with extreme ease. Lying on the grass, the guy grits his teeth, consumed by the frustration of losing in such a pathetic way. Unable to accept defeat, the coward curses the fact that he was beaten by the family's magic less trash. In a final blind rage, he pulls a dagger, vowing he won't lose here. Effortlessly, our hero stomps hard on the attacker's armed hand, stopping the attack. Pressing his foot to the ground, the swordsman warns that his body always telegraphs the next move ahead of time. The boy presses the blade to the rival's neck, who just stammers in terror. In the shadows, the proctor comments that aiming for the zombies is a great tactic for cowardly trash in an exam like this. With a swift and precise strike, the examiner cuts the chain binding the noble to the monster. The magical link shatters, sending iron fragments flying through the air. The guy instantly realizes what that means and goes into absolute shock. Cold and direct, the man declares the candidate has failed and tells him to leave and be expelled from the family. Our hero watches silently as the coward collapses, devastated by his elimination. The hero is fully aware that a single mistake in this hostile environment would cost him everything. Determined, he reinforces his promise to annihilate the necromancer and save his beloved, no matter the cost. Observing the scene, the hooded man analyzes the premature elimination of the first candidate. Intrigued, the instructor can't believe that this boy fights with the flawless posture of a war veteran. Jotting it down in his notebook, he wonders where that absurd strength came from. Far away, another candidate tries to hide behind the rocks with the warrior's zombie wife. Sweating profusely with dread, the guy curses his luck as danger approaches. A colossal half-pig, half-human creature appears, roaring at the top of the hill as it hunts its prey. The young man despairs, realizing he was unlucky enough to run into a rank A monster right off the bat. The enraged beast lets out a deafening roar that makes the earth tremble. Terrified, the noble bolts to save his own life, cursing non-stop. Hiding among the trees, a new proctor observes the candidate's pathetic escape. The man concludes that the test is over, as not even veterans could defeat the giant pig. The massive monster charges forward, destroying the entire forest to run down the desperate youth. Breathless and at the edge of his fear, the guy cries, admitting he can't keep running. In an act of pure selfishness, he plans to sacrifice the chain creature to buy himself time. Hannah's soul remains lost in her agony, completely oblivious to what's happening. But suddenly, the memory of our hero's terrifying threat echoes strongly in the coward's mind. The grim warning of certain demise if the zombie suffered any scratch sends shivers down the young man's spine. Pressured by his fear of Sheik, he skids to a halt in the mud, cursing. Filled with anger, the noble turns around, annoyed by the audacity of the magic, less trash trying to give him orders. He perfectly recalls the strict order to clear the exam while keeping the monster completely intact. And the most annoying part was hearing that a true rival would be obligated to meet that basic requirement. Staring at the beast's giant tusks, the boy deciphers the hidden message and accepts the absurd provocation. Drawing his sword, he vows to fight so he won't be embarrassed in front of his rival. In a courageous advance, the guy lands a focused, lightning-covered slash directly on the beast's head. However, the monster's brutal impact shatters his defense and throws the young man violently to the ground. Hiding in the bushes, the examiner is quite surprised by the kid's attitude of trying to fight head-on. As the candidate rolls defeated on the ground, the man laments that blind courage doesn't win battles. With a deafening roar, the colossal beast charges through the forest, showing all its fury. The absurd power difference is clear as the monster prepares for the lethal attack. Lying in the dirt and completely hopeless, the young noble accepts that this is his end. The massive impact hits the ground, kicking up a giant cloud of dust everywhere. Terrified by the blow, the guy screams, expecting to be crushed by the creature. When the smoke clears, he's shocked to see that our hero has blocked the attack. Glaring at the beast from the side with a threatening look, the swordsman warns it not to get too cocky. He sighs in relief for having arrived in time, noting that this beast has an extremely high mana level. Completely clueless, the smug candidate asks if his rival came to save him. Ignoring the stupid question, Sheik positions himself in front of them, telling the boy to pay close attention. He coldly warns that the guy should follow him and be prepared to perish trying if he wants to survive. The peer mutters the hero's name, still lying on the dirt ground. Visibly annoyed, the warrior demands that the boy stop looking at him with that disgusting face. And he repeats the order for the coward to run after him, as if his life depended on it. Trying to salvage his wounded pride, the noble tells the family's trash not to get a big head. Blatantly lying, the guy claims he was just waiting for the right moment to slice up the beast. Our hero ignores the lame excuse and focuses his gaze directly on the zombie wife. Hannah's corrupted soul continues to moan and agonize endlessly in the middle of the forest. Watching his beloved wife like that, the boy mentally vows to save her no matter what. With eyes gleaming with determination, he asks her to hold on just a little longer. The cowardly noble notices his rival's fixed stare and starts to find his attitude very bizarre. He suspects the magic-less loser has some kind of sick interest in that dead creature. Breaking into a cold sweat, the smug kid is disgusted, thinking his peer has a fetish for corpses. Far from the dark forest, a reddish tea is calmly served in a porcelain cup. In the observation room, the mustached instructor excitedly comments that this year's exam is quite eventful. Sitting in the shadows, Gilgren watches the crystal ball, exuding a heavy and oppressive aura. Patriarch coldly declares that the weak are completely disposable to the family. Agreeing with the Lord, the proctor deduces that the level B monster will annihilate almost everyone. But suddenly, the necromancer notices something very wrong happening in the magical broadcast. The colossal beast begins a bizarre mutation, sending the instructor into an absolute panic. Amused by the situation, the family leader confirms that the creature has evolved to level A. Trembling with fear, the man with glasses stammers, asking if it was the Lord who put it there. With complete nonchalance, the villain replies that it's just a little entertainment to motivate the boys. The mage concludes that this lethal surprise will serve as a perfect trial to evaluate the survivors. The examiner gulps, knowing that no 10-year-old kid stands a chance against this thing. He realizes with terror that the sheer abilities of this beast are a nightmare in themselves. Back on the battlefield, the mutant monster lets out a roar covered in destructive, purple lightning. The smug candidate panics, desperately asking what the plan is now. In the blink of an eye, the beast charges, tearing up the earth with impressive speed. The guy screams in fear, unable to keep up with the enemy's absurd movement. Crying in terror, he assumes it's impossible to defeat an abomination of that size. Acting on pure instinct, the coward turns and runs, dragging the hero's wife along with him. Sheik grits his teeth in anger, cursing his teammates' extreme stupidity. Spotting the easy prey fleeing, the giant pig leaps with all its might to crush the runaway boy. Using his agility, the swordsman gets in front of the heavy attack and blocks the blow in mid-air. Landing firmly, our hero scolds him, wanting to know what the idiot is doing. He warns that turning your back in the middle of a fight is just asking to become the beast's main target. Without giving him time to rest, the monster accumulates a colossal electrical energy around its body. The beast fires dozens of energized spikes while the warrior deftly dodges them all. The massive projectiles slam into the ground, destroying the surrounding rocks with violent impact. Immediately after, the creature's back completely regenerates as if nothing happened. The cowardly guy points in terror, noticing that the abomination has already healed from the attack. Analyzing the situation, the hero realizes that rate of healing is biologically impossible for a normal beast. The image of the necromancer comes to his mind, and he instantly deduces that this is the scumbag's doing. Finding the whole situation very annoying, the boy charges forward, determined for a direct fight. With a clean and lethal move, the swordsman rips off one of the creature's enormous arms. But his peer shouts in despair that the severed limb grew back in a second. The beast tries to crush the hero with a brutal punch, forcing him to leap back instantly. Our hero concludes that striking without the intent to finish it will only make the beast heal infinitely. Planning his next move, he considers using a secret swordsmanship technique from another kingdom to solve the problem. However, the warrior ironically remembers that the proctors are watching his every move. He's sure the Lord is also watching, since he was the one who put the beast there. Dodging another brutal charge, he weighs the risks of using a fighting style that would reveal his true identity. The boy wonders what would happen if the family found out he was reincarnated. Staring at the giant beast, he fears the enemy will discover his true plan for revenge. The warm memory of Hannah appears, showing how much she would suffer if he failed now. The mutant creature roars with even more violence, ready to obliterate the entire battlefield. Focusing on the fight, the swordsman assumes his defensive stance, deciding he can't risk everything. He admits that this electric pig isn't an opponent you can beat while daydreaming. The voice from his past life echoes in his mind, telling him to calm down and remember that his final goal is already set. The cowardly peer yells from behind, asking how the magic-less loser got so strong all of a sudden. Without a shred of patience, the hero tells the kid to shut his mouth immediately. Gripping the hilt of his sword with all his might, he warns that the guy is too weak and tells him to stay back. In the blink of an eye, a colossal explosion of golden flames engulfs our hero's body. The overwhelming aura frightens the smug kid, who stammers, perplexed by that devastating power. Our hero realizes he cannot reveal his true identity under any circumstances, and he declares that using unknown techniques is the only option to obliterate the monster without leaving a trace. At that, the beast roars furiously as the boy charges forward, wielding his sword. Far away, the proctor watches the scene through the crystal ball, completely shocked. The man realizes with terror that a 10-year-old child could never survive against that beast. Ignoring the danger, Sheik leaps high into the air, heading straight for an aerial confrontation. The mutant pig bares its fangs, ready to devour the enemy in mid-leap. Full of confidence, the swordsman tells the ugly creature to bring it on, vowing to tear the beast to pieces. However, a colossal purple lightning bolt is fired, tearing through the forest with a devastating impact. The cowardly noble just screams in total panic, seeing that absurd destruction up close. The beast maintains its massive electric attack, trying to vaporize the target at any cost. Landing with difficulty, the hero clicks his tongue, frustrated at not having the energy to finish it. Observing the enormous trench torn into the ground, the candidate and the zombies are paralyzed with fear. In a cold sweat, the boy notes that the enemy's regeneration isn't stopping and his stamina will soon run out. Desperate, his peer stammers, telling the warrior to look ahead. A hooded and bloodied body appears, lying face down on the ravaged earth. Our hero analyzes the scene and instantly deduces that this was the test proctor. Staring at the body, he confesses he had no idea someone was following them. At that, the mysterious eye on the dead man's chest loses the blue flame that kept it active. The boy realizes the patriarch was using that to watch everything, and now the connection is gone. With a slight smile, he quickly grasps the gigantic advantage of this situation. A dark energy envelops the boy's body as he decides to use his original style. Determined, the hero vows to end the fight right there before another observer appears. Observing the frightening aura, the coward calls out to his peer, totally confused. Preparing his attack, the warrior assumes the initial stance of his secret technique. In the blink of an eye, he moves like a dark blur, impossible to follow. Focusing on the move, the swordsman mentally reviews the basics of his classic style. This lethal art has 7 forms, created to slaughter the Empire's legendary beasts. Today, Chronogeus is the only person capable of mastering them all perfectly. Spinning the sword with brutal speed, he chains in the 4th movement, slicing through the air. The dark impact hits the beast dead-on, spreading a shockwave through the area. Sliding on the grass to regain his balance, the hero quickly moves away. Panting, he realizes the fragile body and the tough hide of the monster prevent a fatal blow. Without wasting time, the monster leaps violently, crashing down towards the boy. The attack hits the ground, kicking up dust as the boy dodges the destruction. Using the momentum, our hero invokes the 3rd form of his style. A brutal downward strike creates an overwhelming explosion of purple power. Far away, the crystal ball in the observation room cracks from the magical interference. The instructor asks if something happened, but the Lord denies it with complete calm. In the forest, an immense crater shows the surreal strength of that attack. The boy lands, skidding on the loose earth, already preparing for the follow-up. But he's startled to see the creature still standing after taking a direct hit. Sweating profusely, Sheik realizes the situation has worsened because his body can't handle using mana. Staring at the target, he concludes he has no choice but to bet it all. The beast roars madly with rage, but the swordsman unleashes an explosion of golden aura. In absolute panic, the guy screams desperately, telling the loser to run. The warrior mentally explains that this stance disperses damage and drains a lot of energy. Holding the sword close to his body, he invokes the 2nd form of his lethal art. A massive projection of a golden hound surrounds the area with glowing bars of light. The The mutant pig is trapped in the magical prison with nowhere to run. With a confident smile, the boy celebrates, stating he's finally caught his prey. Desperate, the beast fires a brutal electric blast, trying to break through. But the prison reveals the exact location of the magical core, right in the beast's throat. With the target locked, our hero charges with all his remaining strength. In a merciless move, he tears the monster in half, aiming for the vital point. The energy core splits into two, shattering the creature's power instantly. Analyzing the marks on the object, Sheik is certain the patriarch tampered with it. The cowardly peer stammers, perplexed, realizing the brat actually won. Completely terrified, he admits he's never seen such a bizarre sword style. Consumed by envy, the noble deduces that his position in the family is in serious danger. Our hero's body suddenly gives out, and he collapses to his knees, exhausted. Sweating heavily, the hero mutters under his breath, already knowing he would suffer this backlash. His vision darkens and the warrior falls, passing out from using mana beyond his limit. Seeing his rival fall, the noble runs to him, calling his name in the middle of the clearing. Staring at the unconscious boy, the guy stammers, asking if the loser survived. Suddenly, the memory of his family's heavy expectations invades the young man's mind. His mother demanded excellence, stating that he was the son of the third wife. With a grim look, the woman warned that she would never accept the shame of exile. Those cold words echo, telling her son to step on his brothers to win. The sick order made it clear that he should take out everyone to achieve glory. Dominated by this ambition, the guy stares at Sheik's body with a malicious face. The swordsman's mind awakens in a field, and he wonders where he is. The hero sees himself in his old adult body, noticing strange figures in the tall grass. The creatures let out bizarre moans, revealing themselves to be undead soldiers. Won is in shock as he recognizes his old comrades. The memories continue in the flowery field with the undead soldiers wandering aimlessly. But soon the vision changes and Chrono sees his beloved Hannah, completely human, nearby. The woman calls to her husband in a very sweet and loving voice. She approaches and hugs the warrior with great affection, repeating his nickname. Suddenly, the nightmare takes over, and his wife turns into that bizarre zombie, tearing at his neck. Sheik wakes up with a start, gasping for air in his own room. In a cold sweat, the boy realizes it was just a bad dream and tries to calm down. The maid Belle notices the movement and quickly calls out to the young master from the bedside. Crying with relief, the girl is thankful he has opened his eyes and asks how he's feeling. Our hero groans in pain as he tries to sit up. At that, the young woman desperately begs him not to strain his injured body. Completely disoriented, the boy asks how many days he's been out in that bed. The servant calmly informs him that 2 whole days have passed since the family's exam. As soon as he hears that word, the swordsman's eyes widen as he remembers everything. Worry, our hero ignores his own pain and asks what happened to the undead creatures. Surprised by the sudden question, the girl repeats the word, not quite understanding. She explains that the brothers who passed are in the mansion with the creatures and wants to know the reason for his question. Ignoring her curiosity, Sheik asks directly if Grika made it back alive. Belle confirms that he and 4 others returned home safely. The warrior is glad to hear it, deducing that the coward was just plain lucky to survive. Feeling immense relief, he concludes that his beloved Hannah is safe for now. However, the maid lowers her head tensely to deliver some rather complicated news. She sadly reveals that only 4 people passed, and the young master failed. The boy is completely shocked and utterly confused by this madness. Enraged, he remembers protecting the zombie until the end, and even killing the strongest monster in the forest. He's outraged, wanting to know how the useless Grika passed while he flunked. The servant is lost at his indignation, as she has no idea what happened out there. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the mansion's main courtyard is one of pure celebration. The instructor walks among the candidates, handing out the official passing badges. The proctor congratulates the group, stating that Lord Gilgren will be very proud of the results. 2 brothers, full of themselves, comment that the test was easy and wish they could have slain more beasts. The proctor announces that the successful candidates will get a special 3-day break. He suggests they use the free time to rest and further hone their techniques. Very excited, Grika runs through the hall, shouting that he finally made it. The man with the mustache just watches the boy's loud exit with a suspicious look. Walking down the corridor, the coward displays a posture full of arrogance and victory. But he is interrupted by Helios, who mentions the rumor that he defeated the rank A beast. Caught off guard, Grika quickly hides his nervousness and confirms the story. The green-haired guy finds it crazy that he beat the beast that even took out the test examiner. Suspicious, Helios questions where he got so much power to still be able to protect the useless Sheik. Maintaining his pose, the liar says they are rivals, and he won't reveal his secrets that easily. The brother just agrees with a bored look, admitting that deep down, he couldn't care less. Wanting to get out of there, the coward hastily says goodbye and continues on his way. However, as soon as he turns his back, he breaks into a cold sweat, completely consumed by guilt. The terrifying memory of our hero, using that overwhelming dark magic, comes rushing back. On that day, the noble had called out to the family's trash in the middle of the destroyed battlefield. Walking slowly, he had asked if the boy passed out on the ground was still alive. With a precise strike, he completely shattered the magical chain that bound the hero. Staring at the monster's decapitated head, the guy declared that the loser had failed the test right there. Standing next to the zombie wife, the liar shamelessly took credit for the victory. With his chest puffed out, he embraced the lie that he had protected Sheik and was the true savior of it all. Without a shred of remorse, the coward left, thinking the brat got what he deserved. Back in the present, the activity in the noble mansion's courtyard remains calm. Jilgren walks through the area, closely followed by the instructor from the forest exam. The proctor asks the patriarch if letting that lie slide was really a wise decision. He points out that the true victor over the magical beast was not Lord Grika at all. The man with the mustache details that at the exact moment the disguised monitor perished on the field, the magical interference detected by the crystal pointed directly to Lord Sheik's mana. Completely intrigued, the instructor asks if the family leader has a plan in mind. Completely ignoring the question, Gilgren coldly dismisses the employee. The necromancer lets out a wicked little laugh, his eyes gleaming in the shadows with pure malice. He finds it fascinating to have something so mysterious and interesting hidden among his children. Meanwhile, the coward walks alone near the large water fountain of the castle. The guy smiles excitedly, certain that his mother will be very proud of his achievement. He scoffs, imagining the look of anger on that bastard Sheik's face when he finds out he lost his spot. Full of himself, he concludes that the brat defeated the beast by pure luck and that the badge is rightfully his. Suddenly, a woman with braids calls the guy's name in a very soft voice. Grika recognizes his mother instantly and turns his face radiant with joy. He runs towards her, desperate to show the result of his great effort. Crying with pure emotion, the young man shows off the badge and shouts that he finally won with honor. But in the blink of an eye, a gigantic S-spike plummets from the sky, piercing his body. The brutal impact tears through the guy, sending blood everywhere without any warning. The massive magic hurls the coward violently, destroying the entire fountain in the process. Sinking into the freezing bloody water, Grika lets out one last groan as his life fades. Grika coughs violently in the water of the destroyed fountain, trying to understand what madness just happened. Just then, Sheik appears imposing, remarking that the conversation seemed very interesting and asks why he wasn't invited. Looking down at the coward, our hero ironically calls him Big Brother. The smug kid stammers, completely terrified by his rival's sudden presence. The warrior comments that he heard some pretty cool stories being told and demands to hear everything too. Ramping up the pressure, he repeats the title of Brother in a threatening tone. Grika can barely open his mouth, breaking into a cold sweat and denying everything out of pure panic. A tense atmosphere takes over the entire courtyard of the vast family estate. The other nobles watch the scene, completely surprised, recognizing that it's Sheik himself causing the commotion. Crouched at the edge of the fountain, the hero demands that his rival open his mouth and start explaining. He ironically laments failing the test, even after trying so hard to annihilate a giant magical beast. Cornered, the coward gulps and tries to deflect, saying it's a real shame. But the swordsman glares at the guy, accusing the scumbag of stealing all his credit in the forest. With a murderous aura, he warns that depending on the answer, that water fountain will become his grave. Desperate, the guy waves his hands, denying everything and telling the loser to stop with the false accusations. Grika musters some courage and shouts, demanding proof, trying to shift the blame back. However, he's interrupted by a brutal kick straight to the face without any warning. The impact sends the coward flying, making him bounce violently across the fountain's water. On his knees, the guy clutches his head, groaning in intense pain. Walking calmly, our hero ignores the crying and cynically asks if that's really the story. He declares that he would have just beaten the guy half to death if he'd shown remorse. But it looks like he'll have to end him instead. The smug kid stammers in absolute panic, begging for a minute of calm. Just then, the maid Belle comes running, desperately asking the young master to stop. The girl warns that even in that sick house, murder among family members is strictly forbidden. Hearing this, the coward instantly gains confidence and agrees with the rule. Taking advantage, he cools his head and remembers that he now has an official passing badge. Grika points his finger, accusing that a trash with no emblem has no right to attack him outside of a formal duel. The swordsman finds the idea interesting and deduces that in an official combat, killing is allowed. The noble loses his composure on the spot, backing away in fear because that's not what he meant. Pointing to his own chest, the hero concludes that fighting is faster than talking and demands the rival wager his badge in a duel. In a cold sweat, the guy tries to get out of the fight, making the lame excuse that he's too tired right now. but his mother appears, pushing the boy forward, demanding that he accept the challenge to show his strength. The woman blindly trusts that someone capable of defeating such a strong beast would win the duel with no difficulty. Being pushed towards his rival, Grika tries to tell his mother that's not how it is. Out of patience, Sheik grabs the coward by the collar, lifting his body with extreme ease. The smug kid desperately pleads for him to stop immediately. With a sadistic look, our hero asks if someone who passed shouldn't be able to handle this fight easily. While mumbling that he refuses to fight, the guy's head is brutally shoved into the fountain's water. The hero uses his raw strength to keep his enemy submerged without showing any mercy. Grika starts to drown, releasing bubbles in a futile attempt to get air. Watching the pathetic scene, his mother screams indignantly, telling her son to get up and fight like a man. The rest of the nobles just whisper in shock, noting that the family's trash is crossing all the lines. The loyal servant Belle watches from a distance, wringing her hands with great apprehension. Keeping the kid underwater, the warrior quietly agrees with the whispers. And he grimly confirms that he knows perfectly well what madness he's committing. He mentally admits that torturing a weak brat isn't something the legendary swordmaster would do. Watching the guy's agony underwater, he reflects on his own current situation. The hero is absolutely certain that his strength wouldn't be enough to defeat the necromancer in a direct confrontation. With Hannah's image in his head, he concludes that winning the Lord's favor is the only viable path now. Pulling the smug kid out of the water, the swordsman asks if he's going to accept the duel or drown right there. The young coward gasps for air desperately while spitting out the dirty fountain water. Crying in pure terror, he finally gives in to the pressure and accepts the official wager. Suddenly, a blade hits the ground right between them, cutting the tension. Haired noble, Helios, appears, demanding that the commotion end there. Sheik turns his head, looking at the newcomer with great suspicion. He's intrigued, noticing that he couldn't sense the guy's approach at all. Searching the boy's confused memory, he tries to remember who this figure might be. At that, Grika calls out to his peer with a trembling voice, revealing his name. Our hero just repeats the name to commit it to memory. Completely calm, the swordsman points out that he doesn't sense any killing intent from the newcomer and asks if he came to mediate the fight. Maintaining a defensive posture, Helios denies having a soft heart and states he just needs to ask a simple question. Pointing his sword, he wants to know if it was the family's trash who really annihilated the beast in the forest. Oozing confidence, the warrior returns the question, wanting to know if he'll get praised if it's true. The newcomer just nods silently upon receiving the confirmation he was waiting for. Ignoring Grika's indignation, the green-haired guy declares that this incompetent idiot could never beat a beast of that level. Showing his official badge in his hand, he offers to take on the challenge in the coward's place. A strong green magical energy begins to circulate throughout the newcomer's body. The young noble tells the hero to attack him, justifying that the boring exam was making his skills weak. Amused by the unusual situation, our hero lets out a sarcastic laugh. In the water, Grika desperately warns that Helios is absurdly dangerous and unbeatable. The swordsman coldly retorts that he doesn't care who the opponent is, as long as he can get his hands on the prize. And he completes his thought, feeling the adrenaline take over the moment. An overwhelming aura begins to overflow from Sheik's body, frightening everyone around. Filled with confidence, the warrior confesses he was getting very bored of fighting only pathetic insects. As their mana clashes in the courtyard, they exchange taunts, demanding the combat begin at once. Helios accepts the challenge, enveloping his body in an intense green energy. Pointing his sword, the newcomer says they'll settle this in a duel. Confident, he tells the family's trash to at least try to make the fight interesting. Sheik agrees this will be fun, since he was tired of beating up cowards. Enveloped by his magical aura, the warrior provokes his adversary, calling him to combat. At that, the maid Belle runs to them, begging them to stop the commotion. The girl becomes completely desperate seeing the dangerous scene. The swordsman tells her to back off immediately, but the servant says she can't do that. She explains that a combat for the badges must take place in an official location. Finding it all a hassle, the hero grumbles, wanting to settle the fight right there in the courtyard. But Helios agrees with the young woman, warning that breaking the rules results in banishment. Annoyed by the bureaucracy, our hero clicks his tongue, finding the family very tedious. The newcomer gets irritated by the disrespectful tone the family's trash used, and he declares that his insolence alone is more than enough reason to end him. Without further delay, the magical torches of a new environment are lit. They walk straight to the blood-stained courtyard of the vast estate. Swings his sword, exuding a strong green magical pressure. Meanwhile, our hero walks calmly, accompanied by his servant. Staring at the skulls in the area, the boy scoffs at the family's famous, official place. To the warrior, this space is nothing more than a filthy fighting pit. Scared to death, Belle begs the young master not to push his body too hard. The girl warns that his opponent is one of the most powerful and usually slaughters his targets. She reveals that the noble's talent was recognized by the patriarch from a very young age. Hearing this, the swordsman gives a sadistic smile, thinking he's going to have a lot of fun. However, the young woman warns that there's still a very important detail about the guy. Helios is known as the Reaper of the White Rose for slicing his prey before they can even scream. Deeply worried, the servant asks the hero to be very careful in the battle. The boy scoffs at the nickname, vowing to stomp on any flower that gets in his way. At that moment, the enormous stone gates of the arena slam shut abruptly. Our hero turns his head, confused, trying to understand what's happening. A wall full of lethal metal spikes begins to enclose the entire arena. The battlefield becomes completely isolated, ensuring no one can escape. By the absurd structure, the hero comments on the top preparations. On the other side, the impatient newcomer tells them to get this charade over with. The guy exudes a strong magical energy, ready to begin the slaughter. Staring at his target, he accuses the loser of not knowing his place and asks if he's ready. The swordsman scoffs at the threatening pose and promises to give him a humiliating nickname if he wins. Consumed by rage, the noble vows to silence the family's trash forever. In the audience, some brothers whisper, finding it crazy that the boy accepted this fight. But suddenly, the crowd's chatter is cut short by an overwhelming presence. The patriarch Gilgren appears imposing on the upper balcony of the combat arena. Helios's eyes widen, extremely surprised to see the head of the house watching. Immediately, all the nobles present kneel in total submission to the Lord. The mustached instructor demands absolute silence from everyone in the stands. Looking up, Sheik mentally celebrates that the scumbag finally showed up. His adversary remains bowed, showing maximum respect for the patriarch. From above, the necromancer tells them to show what they're really made of in the arena. The boy glares at his enemy, completely consumed by the hatred of the past. And he vows to use this useless fight as just a stepping stone to wrench the secrets from that villain. The proctor asks the master for permission to ring the bell and begin the grand entertainment. Using his purple magic, the leader signals the fight to begin, telling them to enjoy the slaughter. The magical bell plummets towards the ground to mark the start of the direct confrontation. As soon as the object hits the stone floor, the mortal duel officially begins. Without losing a single second, our hero charges forward with absurd speed. Helios is shocked to see his rival right on top of him in the blink of an eye. The noble mentally questions if the family's trash is going to aim straight for the head right off the bat. Blocking the brutal blow, the green-haired guy grumbles about his opponent's haste. He shoves the boy back with force, asking if he's trying to show off for the Lord. The intense exchange of blows creates sparks all over the enclosed battlefield. The swordsman dodges a quick counterattack, recognizing the noble's skill. The blades clash again in a test of pure brute strength in the middle of the stone arena. Forcing the sword, the hero clicks his tongue, noticing his rival's obsession with cutting necks. In the stands, the audience is amazed, doubting that this warrior is the loser they knew. A colossal explosion of green mana pushes the fighters apart with extreme violence. Helios coldly denies the provocation as he prepares his next brutal charge. With a sadistic look, the noble warns that he just wants to slice off his opponent's sharp tongue, once and for all. The audience panics upon noticing the strange golden energy circulating around Sheik. They realize with terror that the boy has reached the feared 4th level of magic. The warrior retreats, sliding on the stones under the continuous pressure of cutting winds. Taking advantage of the strategic retreat, the boy lands gracefully on one of the arena's pillars. Landing safely, our hero focuses all his lethal aura directly into his blade. From the shadows of the upper balcony, Lord Gilgren silently observes his son's performance. The necromancer praises his perfect magical control, recognizing the boy's intelligent tactic. With a dark smile, the patriarch admits that the level of combat isn't bad at all. Enveloped in electricity, the opponent doubts the boy's fighting style will work against another level 4. Sheik taunts his adversary, calling the guy to attack and dubbing him hysterical kid. The immense battle arena remains enclosed as the mortal duel unfolds. The warrior questions whether his classic fighting style will work against someone of the same magical level. And he reaffirms his aggressive stance, telling the newcomer to bring it on. In the stands, the other nobles are in complete shock upon noticing the 4th level magic. They can barely believe that the family's trash has also achieved such absurd power. From the high balcony, Lord Gilgren watches the fight in absolute silence. The patriarch lets out a restrained laugh, finding the whole situation quite interesting. But he soon realizes there's something very different about the boy's aura. The villain mutters, wanting to see the true power the boy is hiding. In the arena, Helios faces his rival, surrounded by his strong green magic. The newcomer mutters in frustration, questioning how the loser managed to reach the 4th level. A suspicion hits the guy, and he asks if his adversary also received the Lord's blessing. The hero is clueless and repeats the word, not understanding any of this madness. Joking around, he asks what trip the enemy is on, and if someone's been praying for him. Helios glares at the hero, assuming he's just refusing to reveal the truth. The newcomer declares he won't accept it, stating he is the Patriarch's true chosen one. The completely obsessed, the guy insists he is the only one worthy of that special attention. A colossal amount of green magical energy explodes around the enemy. Several lethal tentacles advance with extreme speed across the battlefield. Dodging with ease, the swordsman scoffs at the attack, saying he finds these vines very gross. Consumed by blind rage, the adversary screams for the family's trash to just drop dead. The newcomer delivers a brutal overhead strike. The massive impact tears through the arena stone as our hero retreats to avoid the damage. A relentless sequence of slashes forces the boy to maintain a continuous defense. In the stands, the loyal maid calls out for the boy, terrified by the situation. Taking advantage of a gap in the enemy's advance, the hero leaps, dodging more charges. Sliding across the floor, he analyzes that his rival uses concentrated attacks, spending little energy. On the other hand, he notices his own magic leaks too much, and a long fight will be a problem. At that, the boy remembers he's strictly forbidden from using his original style there. Landing firmly, our hero concludes that this is not the time to be playing around. However, he recognizes the enemy's movement and already prepares a counter-attack. The swordsman notices the stance is identical to one of his own techniques and decides to shamelessly copy it. Charging forward, the newcomer taunts, asking why the loser's movements have become slow. And he continues his furious charge, demanding to know where all that earlier confidence went. Launching a lethal magical blast, the guy commands the attack to destroy his adversary. Enveloped in intense golden flames, the boy focuses and invokes his new combat stance. With a surreal burst of speed, he charges forward, completely destroying the stone floor in his path. Feeling the power flow, the hero lets out a confident laugh during his advance. From the high box, the necromancer follows every detail of that charge with attention. Helios mutters the patriarch's name, almost sickly in the middle of the battle. The guy angrily states that he will never give up his prestigious position to a piece of trash. Advancing, the warrior internally questions how anyone can idolize that scumbag. The newcomer completely loses control and unleashes his energy all at once. Focusing the aura into his blade, the opponent declares that this fight ends now. The two magics collide violently, creating a shockwave throughout the entire arena. Using quick spins, the boy deflects the green chains with great ease. Focused on his improvised technique, he agrees with himself on the execution of the move. A memory from his past life surfaces, showing the swordsman slicing through an entire army. The hero confirms that this is exactly the brutal way he always fought in wars. Confident, he concludes that brute force works just fine as long as it annihilates the target. With an explosion of golden energy, our hero completely shatters the enemy's defense. Helios lets out a cry of pain as he's hit dead on by the overwhelming impact. The green-haired guy stammers in fear, trying to understand what that absurd force is. In the stands, the audience is amazed, unable to believe what they're seeing. The loyal sidekick clasps her hands, moved by her master's surreal skill. The patriarch just lets out a grunt, showing no great surprise at the turnaround. The warrior's blade glows intensely, accumulating a crushing magical pressure. The boy remains calm, surrounded by electric currents and gleaming flames. The other nobles lean against the railing, trying to decipher the shape of that gigantic magic. Full of confidence, the swordsman tells his adversary to grit his teeth, because he's about to prune his thorns. A colossal cross of pure golden energy illuminates the scene, threatening to slice the target. Helios breaks into a cold sweat, feeling the overwhelming pressure overflowing from that massive attack. Preparing the lethal thrust, the boy reinforces his threat with a completely intimidating look. And he promises to wipe away his rival's arrogance with just a single devastating move. The newcomer's eyes widen, realizing too late that he won't be able to block the charge. Without mercy, our hero launches the torrent of power forward with extreme violence. Desperate, the opponent stammers in panic, accepting his imminent defeat right there. The merciless blow hits the guy dead on, sweeping away the green magic effortlessly. The collision creates an explosion so strong it makes the audience cringe in their seats. The spectators are dumbfounded, praising the destructive power the loser was hiding. With teary eyes, the servant wonders in awe if that incredible guy is really him. The young woman sighs the boy's title, feeling her heart race with pure pride at his victory. The smoke slowly begins to clear, revealing the rubble of the completely destroyed arena. Though badly injured, the defeated one grumbles angrily, stating that the copycat move was total trash. Badly wounded, Helios grumbles, wanting to know if his rival shamelessly copied his technique. But Sheik tells him not to get a big head, assuring him that in the end, he's the predator here. Consumed by anger, the newcomer retorts, calling the loser a weed. He unleashes an absurd amount of green magic, wanting to prove who the real trash is. Using his full strength, the adversary launches several magical chains directly at the boy. Helios focuses all his hatred, trying to crush our hero by any means necessary. Dodging the blows, the swordsman notices that those thorns keep growing endlessly. At that, the hero prepares a massive attack, warning that he'll have to pull out the evil by the root. With a brutal move, he deflects the green charge, creating an explosion in the arena. Pressured, the newcomer tries to convince himself that the family's trash has no technique at all. Landing on the destroyed floor, the opponent tries to catch his breath from the intense exchange. However, the guy lifts his head and notices the presence of Lord Gilgren high above. The family patriarch continues to watch the combat in absolute silence from the balcony. Helios panics upon realizing his master's attention is entirely focused on Sheik. In a cold sweat, he's terrified, imagining if the leader has finally given up on him. In denial, the adversary cries in rage, vowing he won't accept this humiliation. With clenched teeth, he repeats to himself that he is the master's only special chosen one. The newcomer's mind finally snaps, believing he is the only person worthy of that favor. A bizarre aura begins to overflow as he claims the Lord only needs him. Our hero notices the sudden change in atmosphere, and his eyes widen instantly. Completely insane, Helios screams that only he is allowed to stand by the patriarch's side. The boy is impressed by the sudden explosion of sinister energy. Purple magic invades the newcomer's body, tearing him apart violently from the inside out. Watching the scene, the hero immediately recognizes the origin of that dark power. The rival's body undergoes a brutal mutation as he claims he will become one with Gilgren. Showing off his new monstrous form, the opponent celebrates, believing he was the chosen one. Unfazed, Sheik lets out a little laugh, understanding that this is the famous Lord's blessing. The monster babbles the patriarch's name, completely out of control. But the pain of the corrupted power takes over, and the creature screams in pure agony in the arena. Consumed by dark magic, Helios lets out a deafening roar, vowing to take out our hero. The corrupted beast charges forward, screaming the loser's name, vowing to end him. With a heavy blow, the monster attacks, and the hero uses his sword to block the charge. The impact pushes the swordsman back, forcing him to put a lot of strength into his defense. Sweating a little, the boy notes that this human body can't even handle so much energy. The warrior furiously concludes that the scumbag necromancer also experiments on humans. The golden and green magics clash intensely, fighting for space on the battlefield. Remaining calm, the hero feels pity for his rival, stating that these thorns have already destroyed his soul. Helios is offended by the pity and yells that this strength is his greatest badge of honor. The newcomer blindly declares that his great master expectations and love are right there. With his mind shattered, he launches more attacks, saying the Lord has become his thorns. However, our hero firmly retorts that his adversary is completely wrong. Spinning his sword, the hero praises the guy's talent, stating he didn't need that dirty mana. Sheik reveals that the newcomer's clean technique would have been enough to take him to the top one day. The warrior laments that the enemy threw all that future away just to become corrupted. Refusing the truth, Helios tells him to shut up, insisting he did everything for Lord Gilgren. Enveloped in a sea of flames, our hero warns that he's going to cut down that cursed rose for good. Focusing everything into a single lethal attack, the hero charges, breaking through the creature's defense. The blow hits the monster's chest dead on, tearing the skin and gushing blood. With a relentless posture, the swordsman informs his rival that it's pruning time. The golden energy shatters the purple curse, purifying the guy's body with precise cuts. Sheik suggests his adversary clean himself of all this filth and try again in the future. With no strength left to continue, Helios collapses, defeated on the ground as the hero lowers his guard. In the stands, the other nobles are paralyzed, unable to believe the favorite lost. On the upper balcony, Lord Gilgren turns his back, preparing to leave the arena. The mustached proctor quickly bows, thanking the master for his valuable time. Down below, the victor remains motionless amidst the rubble, staring up. The boy glares at the VIP area with a look of pure, contained hatred. Gritting his teeth, the warrior vows that he will definitely slice up that necromancer too. From above, the villain just gives a dark smile, noticing his son's murderous intent. Completely exhausted, the hero stands facing the body of the knocked-out newcomer. Crouching near his defeated rival, our hero doesn't waste time celebrating the victory. He immediately takes the passing badge, securing his reward. Pocketing the prize, the hero announces he's taking his proof of capability and says goodbye. Lying there bleeding, Helios still mutters the patriarch's name, completely devastated. The pain takes over, and the guy passes out for good in the middle of the broken floor. Looking over his shoulder, the warrior advises his rival to live his own life from now on. Just then, a beam of magic appears from the sky, marking the instructor's arrival in the arena. The man with glasses lands stylishly, congratulating the boy on his enlistment in the low-ranked troop. The proctor assures him he'll go over all the details in the future, and tells him to rest for today. Still on the defensive, our hero turns his head, grumbling for the old man to mind his own business. But in an instant, the hero feels a sharp pain and falls to his knees. In a cold sweat, he realizes the backlash from using the sealed mana is hitting him again without mercy. The boy's body completely loses its strength, and he starts to fall backward, exhausted. Struggling to stay awake, the swordsman curses his own weakness as he blacks out. At the last second, his loyal servant Bell catches the young master in a worried embrace. Our hero wakes up completely confused and mutters his servant's name, trying to understand what happened. Greatly relieved, the girl thanks the young master for his effort, confirming that everything ended well. Meanwhile, heavy rain falls on the vast family estate. 3 days have passed since that brutal duel in the stone arena. Closing a book in frustration, the hero realizes the information isn't in that place. He has already rummaged through every possible file in the mansion's immense library, looking for clues. However, the swordsman hasn't found a single hint about the secret of the necromancer's power. Reading an old text, he concludes he's reached the starting line to expose the villain but doesn't know the first step. Focused on his revenge, he hopes to find something that can serve as a breakthrough in this investigation. Just then, 3 arrogant nobles approach, mocking the boy for reading alone in a place like that. The warrior turns his head, annoyed, wanting to know what this irritating trio wants with him. The gang leader says he heard rumors about the victory against Helios and decided to test his strength. Finding it all a drag, she complains that a 3-on-1 just proves how full of cowards this house is. Full of greed, the guy claims that defeating the duel's winner will earn them a lot of prestige. The 3 unleash their magic at once and tell the family's trash to just drop dead. The cowardly trio charges forward, thinking they're in for an easy victory. In the blink of an eye, our hero leaps, creating a shockwave that startles the aggressors. Without mercy, the swordsman lands a brutal elbow strike straight to one of their stomachs. Using the momentum, he delivers a swift attack, knocking out the other 2 in the same instant. Lying on the floor, the guys are shocked by his strength, but the hero tells them they're just too weak. Picking up his book, he decides to leave, grumbling that the fight was boring and dull. Determined, the warrior concludes he'll find the answers by facing them head-on in a fair fight. Looking over his shoulder, he tells the losers to clean up the mess in exchange for his forgiveness. Suddenly, a panting voice calls for the young master, instantly grabbing the boy's attention. The servant Belle arrives, completely exhausted, saying she's looked all over the mansion for him. The boy asks what she wants, while the girl apologizes for the delay. With a serious posture, she announces that Lord Gilgren has an official order and demands his presence. Our hero is overcome by an intense aura, celebrating that the scumbag finally called. Seething with hatred, the hero accepts the summons, completely focused on his plan. He gives a dark smile, knowing this is the perfect chance to get close to his enemy. Walking firmly down the luxurious corridor, the boy heads straight for the throne room. One of the blonde brothers gets a huge shock upon recognizing the family's trash passing by. The other guy lets out a mocking laugh, calling him a cheater for passing the test. Completely focused on his mission, the swordsman ignores the idiots, leaving them talking to themselves. He maintains a cold and calculated demeanor, paying no attention to cheap provocations. Annoyed by his coldness, the blonde noble grips the hilt of his sword, filled with anger. Noticing the cowardly move, our hero slightly turns his head over his shoulder. Casting a murderous glance, he instantly intimidates the aggressor. The noble freezes in fear, feeling a very bizarre aura around the boy. Arriving at the main doors, the guards make way, calling the young master to enter. Inside, the mustached proctor praises his effort in the duel, and the hero dryly agrees. Getting straight to the point, the man announces an official mission from the leader for the new soldier of the troop. With no patience for beating around the bush, the boy tells them to just spit out what the job is. The order is to defend some frozen ruins up north for a period of 6 consecutive months. The swordsman panics, asking why the heck he won't be working near the Lord. The old man corrects him, saying he only said there would be times near the master, but the order is still his. Gritting his teeth in pure rage, the warrior curses this bureaucratic trap. Consumed by fury, he realizes that being sent to an isolated place is practically an exile. However, the proctor reveals that a grand magical ritual of the Lord will take place in those ruins afterward. This information catches the boy by surprise, changing the entire outlook of the situation. The man explains that the patriarch will be in seclusion, preparing the magic during that time. The real objective of the job is to clear the area of magical beasts to ensure the event's safety. Seeing the great hidden opportunity, the hero accepts the challenge on the spot. Gilgren speaks up, guaranteeing that if he returns alive, he'll earn a position very close to him. With a wicked smile, the necromancer asks if the final offer pleases the boy. Our hero mutters, impressed by the promise of being right on his enemy's tail. At that, the instructor tells him to join and cooperate with the middle-class troop already there. Staring at the Lord, the boy finds this demand strange but admits it's a very good bet. Kneeling, he agrees to the order, vowing make the mage regret this decision. A carriage travels through a heavy snowstorm, taking the warrior to the far north. The driver stops the journey, announcing that the carriage can't advance any further in the snow. Opening the wooden door, someone jumps straight into the soft snow, getting a big fright. The servant Bell complains about the extreme cold, shivering all over in heavy winter clothes. The swordsman clicks his tongue, asking why the girl insisted so much on following him. Very loyal, she defends that it's her duty as a maid to serve the young master to the end. The man says goodbye, informing them that the ruins are right ahead, and leaves with the horses. The young woman thanks him for the survival tips, and waves to the carriage driver. Enchanted by the landscape, the girl confesses she's never seen so much snow in her life. But she panics, thinking she's sick because of the smoke coming from her mouth in the cold. Ignoring the drama, the boy focuses his vision on a huge, ruined castle in the middle of the mountains. The shivering badly, the girl musters her courage and tells them to push on through the deep snow. However, the harsh weather takes its toll, and the servant quickly starts to lose her strength. The maid collapses exhausted, making the boy ask where all her energy went. Lying in the snow, she apologizes panting, and the warrior tells her to breathe slowly so she doesn't freeze. Analyzing the girl's condition, our hero decides it's best for them to camp there. Sitting by the fire, our hero warms his hands, trying to ward off the extreme mountain cold. The servant moves closer to the fire, greatly relieved, and confesses she finally feels alive again. But the boy warns that she's underestimating nature, saying any carelessness here could cost her life. Holding the girl's giant backpack, the swordsman is suspicious and asks if this is her first time in a place like this. Intrigued by the size of the bag, the hero grumbles, telling her not to go through his clothes without permission. Belle excitedly opens the luggage and pulls out a heavy coat, explaining she brought it so the young master wouldn't get sick. Taking the piece of clothing, the boy tells the girl to cover up properly and sleep, as they'll be waking up very early tomorrow. The maid quietly agrees, feeling the affection in the hero's protective gesture. Outside the cave, the blizzard continues to relentlessly batter the frozen mountains. Protected from the intense cold, Belle sleeps soundly next to the warm fire. Guarding the entrance, the hero reflects that the servant doesn't know the real danger of this beast-dominated territory. He deduces that if nothing has changed since the past, the dangerous Kurzik tribe is surely hiding around here too. This criminal group is known for using the extreme environment as a military base for their operations. The boy recalls that their cruelty is famous in the underworld for human trafficking and arms smuggling. Assessing the situation, the warrior concludes that eliminating the mission's risk factors means annihilating this entire tribe. Suddenly, the swordsman's instincts go off as he notices a strange presence moving outside. Without wasting time, he throws snow on the fire to extinguish the light and avoid being an easy target in the dark. Just then, the hero quickly turns his head upon hearing the whiz of a projectile cutting through the air towards him. An energized arrow slams violently into the stone wall, grazing right past his head. With a sharp look, the boy concludes that a stealth attack with magic is definitely not the work of an irrational beast. A shower of arrows rains down from the sky, forcing our hero to leap back, dodging with great agility. Analyzing the attack pattern, he quickly realizes they are very well coordinated military movements. Hidden in the blizzard, the archers continue firing continuous volleys at the shelter. The warrior charges forward, tearing across the battlefield while effortlessly dodging the electric projectiles. Closing the distance in the blink of an eye, he draws his sword, ready to slice the enemy. Terrified by his approach, the archer drops his weapon and raises his hands, begging to surrender. Sheik stops the blade at the guy's neck and demands to know who he is, as he isn't wearing the criminal tribe's classic mask. With a cynical smile, the coward says he's from the same troop as the boy and was just playing a little prank. Our hero is completely confused by that lame excuse in the middle of a lethal attack. The mood thickens as an imposing presence emerges, stepping heavily in the thick snow and praising the newcomer's skill. A blue-haired woman appears on horseback, apologizing for her goon's warm welcome. With an air of superiority, the captain introduces herself as Piri and welcomes the new disposable pawn to her troop. The boy lowers his weapon and stares at the commander in complete silence, trying to process the audacity of that statement. Pointing her sword at the boy, the woman provokes the newcomer, stating he's very arrogant for someone of low rank. Visibly annoyed by the mockery, the hero clicks his tongue and wonders who's really being snooty here. Sizing up the boy's physique, the captain grumbles, finding it pathetic that her own brother lost to a guy like this. Piri coldly reveals that she is Helios's biological sister, and that she heard everything about what happened in that brutal duel. The swordsman's posture changes, exuding a dark aura as he asks if the commander came for some kind of revenge. Remaining calm, the noble denies the intention and reinforces the family's sick motto that her brother's weakness was an unforgivable sin. Oblivious to the commotion outside, Belle finally wakes up, rubbing her eyes under the blankets. One of the archers notices the movement in the cave and announces that the girl has awakened. The servant gets a huge fright seeing the group of armed soldiers and screams, demanding to know what's going on. The blue-haired woman sighs in disgust, finding it absurd that the spoiled brat brought a maid on a lethal mission. Still very disoriented, the young woman instantly recognizes the commander's face and stammers in shock. With the initial situation resolved, the large squad sets off, marching through the vast, icy expanse of the mountains. Shivering from cold as she walks in the snow, the maid approaches the boy, wanting to know what happened during the night. Trying not to worry the girl, the hero plays it off, saying the mid-rank commander just came to give them a reception. The servant accepts the answer and quietly comments on how the noble can walk around nearly naked in this cold without freezing. The conversation is brutally interrupted by an absurd tremor that shakes the entire snowy plain. In a complete panic, Belle clings to the young master's arm, thinking it's an earthquake destroying everything. The snow and stone ground explode with extreme violence right near where the entire troop was riding. Holding the girl firmly, the warrior clicks his tongue, already deducing that a magical beast has decided to show up. Far from being scared, the commander flashes a smile, finding it the perfect moment for a test. She challenges our hero directly, wanting to see with her own eyes the strength that defeated her brother. Without a shred of patience, the swordsman asks why the heck he should obey such a stupid order. Exuding authority, Puri reminds him that she is his official superior and needs to evaluate if the newcomer is capable enough to stay in the unit. As the gigantic monstrous serpent roars, tearing through the ice, the woman threatens to send the boy back home on charges of desertion. Consumed by the irritation of being blackmailed, the hero charges forward, muttering that he hates arrogant people. Drawing his blade in a fluid motion, the boy tells the captain to watch very carefully what he's about to do. The colossal purple snake raises its gigantic body, ready to devour the prey that dares to approach. Skidding on the frozen surface, the boy quickly retreats to avoid the creature's heavy charge. Watching from afar, the commander taunts the newcomer, wanting to know if he's going to spend the whole fight just running from the monster. Annoyed by her chatter, the warrior tells the woman to shut up and stay put. With a powerful leap, he charges at the beast, demanding the captain just watch in silence. The attack hits the serpent's back dead on, creating intense sparks as it strikes the thick scales. However, the swordsman lands, startled, upon realizing the creature didn't suffer a single scratch from his blow. The noble calmly explains that the beast's metallic scales have thermal retention properties to survive in the extreme cold. She scoffs, stating that the impenetrable material is too tough to be sliced with brute force, and asks what the boy's plan is. Thanking her for the free lesson in the middle of combat, the hero begins to accumulate strong electrical energy in his legs. Focused on his movements, Puri notices the newcomer is concentrating mana only in his lower limbs to conserve vital energy. The woman gives a slight smile, finally acknowledging that the guy's absurd strength wasn't just a rumor. With surreal speed, our hero launches a devastating sequence of energized slashes at the serpent. The beast lets out a deafening roar of pain as it feels the blows pierce its natural defenses. The commander praises the swordsman's lethal precision for aiming exactly where the creature's armor was thinnest. Despite the massive effort, the noble warns that the damage still isn't enough to take down the monster for good. The boy runs and taunts the giant snake, telling it to come straight at him. The monstrous creature attacks with all its might, trying to devour the boy in one go. With an agile leap, the swordsman dodges the lethal charge while the commander watches from below. Landing right next to the woman's horse, the hero sarcastically asks for her to excuse him. The captain thinks the guy is a real joke. She questions if this low-class soldier is trying to test her strength. Without losing her composure, the noble readies her weapon and tells the maid to look after her horse during the fight. The beast charges furiously at the woman, who leaps straight into the confrontation. The warrior unleashes a massive electric attack with her spear against the serpent. The brutal impact hits the monster dead, forcing the giant creature onto the ice floor. Our hero sees the perfect opening and thanks the captain for the help. With his sword covered in an intense golden aura, the boy announces he's going to finish the job. In a devastating move, the hero slices the serpent with an explosion of energy that annihilates the monster. The creature's colossal body falls lifelessly in the snow, ending the heavy combat in the mountains. Completely relieved, the loyal servant runs through the snow, calling for her young master. The girl asks if he's okay, the swordsman confirms and thanks her for the extra clothes she brought. The blue-haired woman praises his performance. She admits the boy isn't just a pawn running to his own demise. Annoyed by her arrogance, the warrior retorts that she's still underestimating him. He tells the captain to admit she was impressed. Ignoring the provocation, the noble mounts her horse and says she's kept the troop waiting too long. She orders him to follow, promising a lot of work. With a sharp smile, the commander calls the hero by his official name with great authority. The swordsman lets out a sarcastic laugh as he walks. He warns the captain not to complain when he steals all the glory from the mission. The boy lets out a heavy sigh, feeling the freezing mountain air. Just then, he notices the servant standing in the snow and asks what she's doing there. The swordsman is a bit confused seeing the girl from behind in those winter clothes. Getting things mixed up, our hero ends up calling out his late wife's name, Hannah. Trying to play it off, he comments that he finds it strange their breath doesn't freeze in this weather. Belle agrees with a little laugh, mentioning they are much higher than any mountain. The girl naturally explains that the dry, cold air of this environment prevents the vapor from forming. Impressed by her intelligence, the warrior praises the young woman's knowledge on the subject. However, the servant reveals she learned it all from reading the books in his own office. With his guard down, the boy admits he only understands combat and leaves the studying part to her. The maid smiles sweetly and says she's counting on the protection of the great swordmaster, Chronogaius. Soon after, the entire troop advances, marching through the vast, white, frozen expanse of the mountain. Walking in the middle of the group, the hero maintains a very serious and focused posture. Commander Piri leads the squad on her horse, watching everyone's movements. The other soldiers continue their journey in absolute silence, braving the biting northern cold. Later, the maid notices that the atmosphere around them has become completely silent. Striking up a conversation, she comments to the young master about this sudden calm on their journey. The boy agrees without much emotion, reminding her they're not on a leisurely stroll to be chatting. The young woman understands but confesses that all this silence is quite scary, as if time has stopped. At that, she notices the cold has intensified and that the vapor from her breath has finally reappeared. Our hero calmly explains that the soft snow absorbs almost all ambient sounds. He adds that the clear air makes heat disappear quickly, creating this beautiful world of stillness around them. Belle agrees the scenery is wonderful but still finds the vast, icy expanse quite terrifying. Curious about his explanations, the girl asks where the young master learned so many complex things. In a slip-up, the warrior starts to say that Hannah was a great expert in meteorology. But he freezes instantly, realizing the huge mistake he just made out loud. The servant finds the name unfamiliar, forcing the boy to change the subject very quickly. Cutting off the conversation, the captain calls to the maid, saying she'll tell a more interesting story. Piri asks mysteriously if the two have ever heard of the infamous Krujik clan. The swordsman immediately remembers this ruthless criminal organization that operates in the underworld. The commander confirms his suspicions, explaining that these snowy mountains are their territory. She warns the bandits are gathering their forces and are surely already tracking the troop. The servant panics, remembering these guys are famous for heavy human trafficking. With a calm smile, the noble reassures the girl, stating that the criminals' target isn't people. Sheik remains silent, paying close attention to the captain's conversation with the maid. Piri reveals that the gang is after a legendary treasure, the great sword of Chronogaius. Hearing this catches our hero completely off guard, leaving the boy in absolute shock. The legend says the warrior's original weapon ended up in this frozen place after the Great War. Consumed by memories, the hero remains silent, trying to process everything he just heard. The girl repeats the swordmaster's name, remembering she's read about him in books. The blue-haired woman confirms with pride, emphasizing that Lord Gilgren defeated the hero. She boasts that the patriarch's victory over the legendary warriors is still famous today. The boy grits his teeth, feeling the hatred of that unjust defeat burn in his chest. Full of ambition, the commander assesses the priceless value of a weapon forged for a legend. With a wicked smile, she vows she will never let trash like the Krujik clan get that treasure. Clenching his fist tightly, the warrior tries to hide his fury, while the servant asks if he's okay. The captain grumbles that she would have loved to fight this chrono guy to test his strength. Further ahead, a bald guy from the troop comments on a riddle about a full moon shining on heavy snow. The man explains to the maid that they've been looking for this clue for a year with no success. He confesses he's afraid the treasure might not even exist, while the young woman just nods at his frustration. In the shadows, our hero walks with his head down, thinking intensely about his old weapon. He is absolutely certain that a blade with the essence of his great sword is hidden here. The hero realizes his magical efficiency has been increasing absurdly in recent days because of the sword. He concludes he was missing a strong enough receiver to channel all that golden magical power. With a determined look, the swordsman declares he won't let anyone steal his sword. Suddenly, the troop's horses halt abruptly in the soft snow, stopping the march. Piri stops her mount instantly, noticing strange movement right in front of them. The boy also senses the threat and immediately assumes a sharper combat stance. Completely confused by the sudden stop, the bald soldier asks what's going on. A lone, mysterious figure appears, walking slowly through the dense blizzard. Piri asks if he's okay. The captain confirms with a smile, saying he's fine. The boy asks if he knows where the treasure is. The servant confirms with a nod. The boy lets out a sigh, feeling the weight of the world lifting off his shoulders. The entire group stops, staring at the threat, while the bald soldier tries to figure out what kind of creature it is. With a confident smile, the commander jokes that the demons themselves have come to say hello. A goon with a bizarre white mask and horns emerges from the shadows, facing the troop. Belle screams in terror, thinking it's a monster, forcing the bald guy to draw his sword instantly. Acting fast, the hero steps in front of the girl, telling her to stay calm and back. He analyzes the situation, warning that the famous Krujik clan has come to put on a private show for them. The bandit's mask begins to glow intensely, exuding a very dangerous purple magic. In a matter of seconds, dozens of masked goons covered in lightning appear in the snow. Using impressive speed, the criminals charge across the snowy battlefield. The captain readies her spear, immediately recognizing the enemy's cowardly combat style. In the blink of an eye, the huge group of bandits surrounds the military troop from all sides. Our hero calmly draws his blade, merely noting the enemy encirclement. Without showing any fear, Piri celebrates that the prey came straight to the slaughter, saving them the trouble. Finding the whole performance a huge exaggeration, the boy steps forward and challenges the first one who wants to go. But everyone's attention is stolen by a very heavy and threatening footstep that sinks into the snow right behind them. Suddenly, a colossal magical spear falls from the sky, causing an absurd electric explosion. The masked goons are terrified by the size of the magic falling right in their midst. Oozing with confidence, Piri tells all those insects to perish once and for all. Sliding back, Sheik clicks his tongue and grumbles that the commander is way too over the top. However, our hero soon realizes something is very wrong with the ice floor. Pressing his foot down, he notices the frozen surface is cracking rapidly beneath them. Desperate, the hero tries to warn Piri that the ground below them won't withstand the impact. Ignoring the warning, the commander lands, driving her electric spear into the ice with full force. The devastating shockwave sends the bandits flying in all directions without mercy. Full of herself, the noble tells the weak to take a nap in the snow and praises her family's absolute strength. But the celebration is short-lived as the floor begins to completely give way beneath her feet. Annoyed by her stupidity, the swordsman yells that the ground is going to collapse because it's made of pure ice. The captain is shocked, realizing her own massive mistake too late. A colossal crack tears across the entire plain, swallowing all the enemies in its path. Desperation grips the woman as she plummets into the abyss, unable to react. Falling right after, our hero tries to stay focused as he notes the depth of the abyss. Up above, Belle and the bald soldier scream desperately for their leaders who were swallowed up. The chaotic freefall drags the captain, the hero, and one of the criminals into total darkness. Remaining calm amidst the chaos, the warrior quickly adjusts his body's posture in mid-air. At that, the bandit notices Sheik's movement and curses the gigantic fissure. On the surface, the survivors continue to scream in terror, not knowing what to do. Staring at the colossal hole, the soldier assumes the commander was literally devoured. The man realizes that anyone falling from that height is absolutely certain to perish. Crying in despair, the loyal servant whispers the boy's title at the edge of the abyss. Far from being scared, the hero asks with the utmost calm if the captain is an idiot. He scolds her, saying that attack was bound to cause this, but the noble tells him to shut up. The woman tries to blame the boy, forcing him to state that she lost control. Annoyed, the captain demands the newcomer admit he was impressed by her absurd strength. The useless argument is cut short when the commander notices a strange glow coming from below. She points to the hole, announcing that the freefall is finally coming to an end. Intrigued by the light, our hero tries to figure out what's waiting for them at the bottom. The captain tells him to brace for impact if he doesn't want to become a pancake on the ice floor. Full of himself, the boy retorts that he would never make an amateur mistake on the landing. Both quickly focus their intense magical auras to try and soften the impact. The golden energy and red electricity mix as they tear through the wind towards the bottom. The impact of the two creates a destructive wave that kicks up a lot of dust and ice everywhere. The woman's magic dissipates forcefully, spreading electricity across the frozen cave walls. Gradually, the smoke from the collision begins to settle, revealing that both landed safely. Dusting herself off, Piri confirms they've reached the bottom and grumbles about the long fall. The boy clicks his tongue, calling the commander a mythhead for causing all this. He notes that the noble is quite brutish for a sister of Helios, but she tells the weakling to shut up. Staring at the immense hole high above, the captain assumes that climbing back up is completely impossible. Cold and calculating, she concludes that advancing through the cave is the only chance of finding the surface. The commander suggests they split up to cover more area and tells him to signal if he finds an exit. The hero agrees, grumbling for her not to break the floor again, and asks what the signal would be. Amused, the woman slaps her own butt on purpose and tells him to listen for that sound. With a look of pure disgust at her idiotic behavior, the boy just agrees with a tired sigh. At that, our hero turns his back and starts walking alone through the immense corridors of the abyss. Observing the crystalline walls, he tries to understand what kind of bizarre material forms this place. Curious, the swordsman uses the hilt of his blade to tap and test the ice's absurd resistance. The boy concludes that the dark material resembles obsidian, being absurdly harder than stone. Walking near the internal river, he assumes it's impossible to slice it without using real magic. The memory of the bandit's objective returns, and he vows to resolve this mess quickly. Suddenly, his sharp instincts go off as a deadly blade grazes past his head. Dodging by a hair's breadth, the boy gives a sly smile, praising the enemy's unexpected agility. The hero realizes he didn't sense any presence before the attack, confirming it's the assassin clan. The masked bandit grumbles that the kid is very brave and demands to know who he's dealing with. Analyzing the clothes carefully, Sheik instantly recognizes this coward as the same leader from up top. Maintaining his disguise and cynical pose, our hero lies, using his new name without hesitation. The criminal glares at the boy through his mask, completely focused on killing the threat. The mention of the noble family's name immediately affects the assassin, causing him to change his combat stance. Our hero just waits in silence, trying to analyze the bandit's next move. The masked man declares that the Prouds are sworn enemies for having destroyed his clan's honor in the past. Amused, the hero scoffs that the guy has no honor, since he fled, leaving his partners for dead. Visibly annoyed by the kid's coldness, the criminal admits he hates that threatening look. The boy's aura darkens as he holds a gaze worthy of the former relentless swordmaster. Trying to fish for information, Sheik deduces out loud that Gilgran is terrified of that legendary sword. The bandit is completely lost by the strange reasoning and asks what the heck the brat is talking about. Annoyed with the riddles, the masked man raises his blade, guaranteeing that his revenge won't be stopped by anyone. He reveals that the main plan is to use the treasure to slaughter the Necromancer and wipe his family off the map. An aggressive magical aura explodes from the bandit as Sheik asks if he wants to perish right there on the ice. Processing the speech, the warrior notes that the enemy considers the weapon the only viable way to take out the Lord. The villain's image appears in his mind as he suspects the weapon is linked to the secret of his immortality. The boy admits he thought it was just a common robbery, but now realizes the situation has become very serious. Completely consumed by fury, our hero vows he won't let some random worm touch his blade. Falling from the sky like a red lightning bolt, Captain Piri fires her spear, shouting that this is how the truly strong fight. The masked bandits are utterly terrified, staring at the colossal magic coming right at them. Oozing pure arrogance, the noble tells all those insects to perish at once. No tears. Sliding back, Sheik clicks his tongue and grumbles that the commander is way too over the top, but soon notices something is very wrong. Pressing his foot down firmly, our hero realizes the frozen surface is cracking rapidly beneath them. The hero instantly realizes that the ice floor won't withstand the raw impact of that absurd attack. Desperate, the boy tries to warn the captain that the floor won't hold under the devastating force of her charge. But it was too late, and the warrior lands, driving her electric spear into the ice, causing a gigantic explosion. The absurd shockwave sends the bandits flying in all directions without a shred of mercy on the plain. Full of herself, the warrior tells the weak to take a nap in the snow, exalting the absolute and unbeatable strength of her noble family. However, the celebration is short-lived as the floor suddenly begins to completely give way beneath her feet. Furious at her stupidity, the swordsman yells the ground is going to collapse because it's made of pure ice, not solid earth. Only then does the commander's eyes widen in shock, realizing her own colossal screw, up too late. A massive crack tears across the entire white plain, beginning to swallow everything and everyone in its path. Dust grips the woman as she plummets into the frozen abyss, unable to react properly. Falling right after, our hero tries to stay focused, noting the immense depth of the dark and deadly hole. Up above, Belle and the bald soldier scream desperately for their leaders, who were unexpectedly swallowed by the crater. The chaotic freefall drags the captain, the hero, and even one of the masked criminals, straight into the total darkness of the underground. Remaining calm amidst all the absolute chaos, the warrior quickly adjusts his own body's posture as he falls. At that, the bandit notices the bizarres of the fissure in the ice and curses the situation, already accepting the worst possible fate. On the frozen surface, the survivors continue to scream in terror, not knowing what to do, stuck on that dangerous edge. Staring at the immense hole, the soldier assumes in complete shock that the commander was literally devoured by the ground. The man realizes, trembling with fear, that anyone falling from that height is absolutely certain to perish without any hope of salvation. Crying in pure despair, the loyal servant just whispers the boy's title at the edge of the abyss, unable to help. Far from feeling fear down below, the hero asks with the utmost calm if the captain is a complete idiot. He scolds her, reminding her the blow would cause this, but the woman cuts him off, telling him to shut up and accept it. The captain tries to blame him, forcing the boy to click his tongue and throw it in her face that she got carried away and lost control. Annoyed by his sharp retort, the commander demands the newcomer just admit he was amazed by her strength. The completely useless argument is cut short when the noble notices a strange flash of light coming from the bottom of the pit. She points downward, telling the boy with relief that the freefall is finally coming to an end. Intrigued by the weird glow, our hero tries to figure out what's waiting for them at the bottom of the immense tunnel. The woman tells him to brace himself for impact if he doesn't want to become a flattened pool of blood on the hard ice. Full of himself, the boy retorts to the captain, guaranteeing he would never make an amateur mistake right at the landing. Both quickly focus their intense magical auras to try and cushion the violent impact with the ground. The golden energy and red electricity mix as they tear through the wind towards the dark bottom of the hole. The duo's collision creates an absurd destructive wave that kicks up a lot of dust and broken ice everywhere. The warrior woman's red magic dissipates with great force, spreading violent lightning across the frozen walls of the cave. Gradually, the smoke from the impact begins to settle in the area, revealing that both manage to land in total safety. Dusting off her clothes, Piri confirms they hit the ground and grumbles about the long duration of that infinite fall. The boy clicks his tongue in the corner, calling his superior a meth head for causing all that mess for nothing. He comments that the captain is pretty crude for a relative of Helios, earning a warning to shut up and stop whining. Staring at the gigantic fissure high above, the noble coldly assumes that climbing back up those smooth walls is impossible. Being very calculating, she concludes that advancing through the darkened cave is the only real option to find an exit. The commander suggests they split up right there to cover more area and demands a very clear signal if he finds anything. The swordsman agrees, grumbling for her not to collapse the ceiling again, and casually asks what the heck this signal would be. Amused, the woman slaps her own butt on purpose and tells the boy to listen carefully for that bizarre sound. With a look of pure disgust at his boss's idiotic and childish behavior, the boy just agrees with a deep, tired sigh. Without further delay, our hero turns his back and starts walking alone through the gigantic and icy corridors of the abyss. Calmly observing the crystalline walls around him, he tries to understand what kind of strange material forms this place. Curious about the structure, the hero taps the hilt of his own blade forcefully to test the wall's resistance firsthand. The boy concludes that this barrier isn't common ice and strongly resembles obsidian, being absurdly harder than normal stone. Walking alongside the underground river, he quickly assumes it's totally impossible to slice it without using real magic. At that, the memory of the bandit's objective comes rushing back, and the warrior vows to resolve this annoying mess quickly. His instincts go wild as a lethal blade grazes past his head, coming from nowhere. Dodging by an absolute hair's breadth, the boy gives a sharp, sly smile and even praises the masked enemy's unexpected agility. The hero mentally notes that he didn't sense any killing intent before the blow, confirming it was a direct attack from the clan. The mysterious bandit grumbles that the kid is too brave and demands to know who he's about to fight to the end. Analyzing the target's heavy clothes, Sheik recognizes him instantly and states that this coward is the same leader from up top. Maintaining his perfect facade and a completely cynical pose, our hero just lies, using his fake name without showing any fear. The assassin glares at the boy through his mask, totally focused on annihilating any member of that dirty family. The brazen mention of the proud family name affects the bandit instantly, forcing him to retreat and quickly change his stance. Our hero just waits in the same spot in total silence, trying to decipher the pattern of the next enemy attack on the ice. The masked man declares with blind fury that the Prouds are mortal enemies, sworn to be destroyed for having ruined his clan's honor in the past. Finding that story hilarious, the hero scoffs that the guy has no honor for running away and leaving his friends for dead. Visibly annoyed by the kid's absurd coldness, the criminal admits he hates that heavy glare staring at him. The boy's aura darkens in an instant as he holds a threatening gaze worthy of the former swordmaster himself. Trying to fish for some useful information from this trash, Sheik deduces out loud that Jilgren is terrified of the legendary sword. The bandit blinks, completely lost by the kid's quick reasoning, and questions the meaning of that statement made with such confidence. Annoyed by the boy's riddles, the masked man raises his blade, guaranteeing that his bloody revenge won't be stopped there. He lets out all his anger, revealing the grand plan to use the treasure to kill the Lord and wipe his family off the face of the earth. A strong and aggressive magical aura explodes from the bandit, while Sheik calmly asks if the target really wants to perish in the cold. Processing the rehearsed monologue, the warrior quickly notes that the enemy treats the secret weapon as the only tool to take out the mage. The necromancer's shadowy figure appears in his mind as he strongly suspects the weapon is directly linked to his so-called immortality. The boy admits that he initially thought it was just a normal robbery, but firmly concludes that the situation has now become much more serious. Completely consumed by his mission of revenge, our hero smiles sadistically, vowing he will never let a worm touch his blade. With a shocking burst of pure energy, the blades of our hero and the masked man collide violently in the middle of the cave. The mana explosion kicks up a heavy cloud, pushing the two warriors apart on the frozen floor. Taking advantage of the retreat, the combatants charge forward again with all their might, destroying the crystalline ground with the force of their dash alone. The criminal slides quickly across the scene, preparing his next lethal charge against the target. Descending like a golden lightning bolt, the hero delivers a crushing attack straight from above. The massive impact is blocked, generating intense sparks as the two test their brute strength face to face. Staring at the boy up close, the bandit tries to understand what kind of surreal technique is being used. A relentless sequence of swift slashes illuminates the abyss's darkness with blasts of pure magic. Pushed back by the absurd pressure of the blows, the swordsman skids on the ice, keeping his guard completely up. Observing the enemy's posture, the masked man concludes that the boy's clean technique far surpasses the level of his tribe. But a reality check hits the criminal when he notices the hero's gaze and precision, suspecting something impossible. Ignoring his rival's doubts, our hero charges forward, focused, and warns that he'll beat the truth out of him. Suddenly, the ice cracks violently, opening a giant fissure right in the middle of their battlefield. The boy stops his attack instantly and curses in frustration, suspecting the crazy commander broke the ceiling again. However, a colossal magical beast emerges, tearing through the frozen surface with a deafening roar. The assassin goes on high alert, realizing the legends about ancient beasts living in this underground were real. Noticing his rival knows a lot about the place, the warrior assumes his classic combat stance, making a quick decision. Without taking his eyes off the colossal threat, the hero gets the bandits' attention, proposing a temporary truce. The boy suggests they put their fight on hold and focus on the monster, as it would be a disaster if the creature destroyed everything there. Scaled abomination bares its terrifying fangs roaring madly, ready to devour the intruders. Facing the mortal danger head-on, the masked man evaluates the boy's unusual offer in complete silence. Recognizing he has no other viable choice, the criminal ends up agreeing to the impromptu alliance. But he coldly warns that the hero will be the next target as soon as the beast falls, telling the kid not to cry when he's taken out. Our hero just gives a sharp, confident smile, accepting his rival's bold challenge. Finding the deal perfect, the two warriors dash together like lightning towards the giant beast to begin the slaughter.